This right here is the KSO Show, your home for K-State coverage. Stay current on what's happening in the Wildcat world of sports. By the end, you might want to tell your friends about us. Or not. But hey, you should. Let's get it.
Welcome to the Tallgrass Tap House, 320 East Points in Manhattan, Kansas. KSO Show, as we do every Thursday night here. Probably listening to it. It's probably Thursday night still on the side. I bet we have it up this evening. I am joined. There'll be a number of people here, but right now there's a smaller number. Grant Flanders, no mic, just running the board tonight, so you don't get to hear, misspoke for sure on that one. Jimmy, KSU fan, not here last week, but back this week, which is good. A lot of wins in basketball for us to talk about right now. And Derek Young was going to come down Tuesday to watch the basketball game and do some more podcasts with us, but the weather, was an issue. But you're here now.
I am.
Which is all that matters. So John Kurtz will join us here soon. He's out doing some other work. I don't know what it is, but he'll be here when he comes in. We'll just throw him into the fire, guys. This one will all be Q&A. If I feel like we get through it, we haven't talked enough somehow about, K-State or Purdue A&M, perhaps we'll step back and really get into that, but I bet you the questions will take us there. I'm not going to answer a question, guys. I'm just going to be the reader tonight. Unless it's directed at me, then I'll be all over it. So let's start with a question from Scott Wildcat, and I'm going to ask Derek first, and we'll move over to, we'll say fan. I think that covers all the bases pretty well. So, Derek, Big 12 SEC Challenge coming up this weekend. Are you for or against this happening roughly one-third into the Big 12 season already having taken place? I'll read Scott's question word for word. Are you for or against the Big 12 SEC Challenge occurring after 38.8% of the Big 12 season taking place? Start with Derek Young in this question.
I'm okay with it. I think it's a nice reprieve and a good break in the middle of the conference schedule. I know, some of the maybe older fashioned people like just, 18 conference games, have at it, no break in between. But I think a reprieve in the middle is not a bad thing. I think it can be a good thing, and especially when you're still playing. I know it's not Power 5, but a power conference team.
Same thing to you, Jimmy. Does it impact, how maybe resumes get built or any part of the game, differently than playing this early in the year as opposed to playing it now a third away to the Big 12 schedule?
I like where they've put it. I kind of agree with Derek that it's nice. Even Barry said today, he's it's kind of a nice break from the grind of the Big 12. Get a break in the middle, go play someone different. You always are going to feel better if you win the game, but it is an opportunity for the league. You got 10 games against SEC teams. SEC's a pretty good league this year. Third or fourth on most metrics. Big 12's first or second. So you match up those two leagues, it's a chance to get a bump in your net ratings, a quality win or two for a lot of Big 12 teams. Right now, KenPom projects that Big 12 to go 8-2. If they did that, that would be a pretty fantastic weekend if they can manage to do that. So I think it's a good thing for both leagues, and it's a good spot for it to be.
Absolutely. If I was going to answer, I would have said the same. I feel very similar to you guys about this. Let's move on to Miles 785. A good thing about this, I should say 785. I'm sure it's the area code, not 785. Is we're going to have some serious questions, some joking questions. This will be more the joking variety, but he probably wants a serious answer, Derek. Do you prefer the combination of peanut butter and jelly or mayonnaise and mustard? Simple question.
Neither. I can't. I'll answer. I can't pick one because I'm allergic to peanut butter, and mustard is the thing I hate worse than life.
So I'm going to be difficult with this. So you'd pick mayo and mustard because you literally can't have peanut butter.
Yeah, I guess I would have to.
But you would hate it.
Mustard's the grossest thing to me in this world.
Well, you got to follow that up. Is mustard that gross, Jimmy?
I don't mind mustard. I like mustard and mayo on a burger, so I'm going to pick mayo and mustard.
I also like mayo and mustard on a burger, for the record. Okay, Scott Wildcat has a number of questions for us, which is fine because they're all good. Guys, as you sit here in the tap house, which is more likely? Let's go with Jimmy first, or fan. Which is more likely? K-State wins the Big 12 men's basketball crown outright this season, or the football team simply goes to a bowl game next season?
I would say football team goes to a bowl game next season would be more likely. Not by a lot, but I think it is more likely.
I would echo the same. Not by a lot. I think it's closer than people would probably realize, but I would lean towards the bowl game.
I feel you guys on this. You're very smart. Question 2 in this segment from Scott Wildcat. If Barry Brown were to win Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, was first-team All-Conference, and was a finalist for the National Defensive Player of the Year, but K-State didn't win the conference and didn't make it to the second weekend of the tourney, and Barry didn't make it on any alternate teams, would you put his jersey in the rafters? So to restate it, no real tournament success this year, but Barry has a lot of individual success. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, first-team All-Conference, that kind of thing. Is Barry Brown a jersey you retire at K-State? We'll go with Fan first.
My thing is I think he's got to at least be honorable mention All-American, which wasn't in Scott's list. So if he doesn't achieve that for whatever reason, I would not be prone to put him up as a banner and put his number up there. If he manages to get an honorable mention All-American list, then I would be more prone to want to retire that number, or not retire the number, but put the number up in the rafters.
What do you got, DY?
I would say no, because other than getting that Defensive Player of the Year honor, he would basically have the same resume as Dean Wade, and we wouldn't put Dean Wade on it because Dean Wade got first-team All-Conference last year.
I'm probably with you guys too. It's so hard not to answer. I don't want to though, because I want to be an actual host today. This one's pretty straightforward. Would you put Rodney Magruder's jersey in the rafters?
See that. My criteria generally goes back to at least honorable mention All-American. I can't remember if Rodney got that in any publication.
Feel like he did.
I don't think he did. I have tweeted out that I kind of intimated that maybe he should be, but I do kind of want to have that at least honorable mention All-American as a minimum standard for putting the numbers up in the rafters. So I would say no if he hasn't, and I don't think he did either.
I know you're familiar with Rodney Magruder as a player and knows time at K-State a little bit. What do you think about that? Does he seem like a guy who should be hanging his banner up there in Bramlage?
Yeah, I'll concede to you guys more than anything on this, but just from, being, I guess, a fan kind of separated from that era, but just kind of watching casually, it doesn't seem like the caliber of player just on the surface to me that would be, that kind of honor.
Well said. Do you guys believe, starting with Fan, do you believe when fans like yourself build up the games versus KU, it negatively impacts the team in those games?
I've always kind of made fun of fan message board synergy, either negatively or positively impacting a team. It's on the players. I do think there might be some more pressure for those games because of the interest of the fans, but honestly, I go to if the players can't handle that, maybe they aren't good enough anyway. So I think fan-built pressure on a team is kind of an overrated thing. I don't think it's necessarily not a real thing at times, but I don't think it should be considered an excuse or a factor in losing those games.
I think it can build suspense for a game, but I don't think it has any impact on an outcome of a game. I think the only fan impact on an outcome of a game is crowd noise during that game.
Next question from Scott Wildcat. A number of things to this question, so I'll break them up. One, starting with Fan, why is K-State so good on defense?
Well, the combination of ball pressure, great rotations on defense, this year rebounding on defense.
Right.
Really good at protecting the lane, protecting the rim. You look at the things we've done, but it all starts with this team forces turnovers like crazy. It's always been a trait of Bruce teams, but this year we're in Big 12 play. We're at almost 25% of opponents' possessions in a turnover.
Right.
I mean, when you're giving the ball away a quarter of the time, that makes it tough. So those are really the things: the ball pressure, and then forcing teams into tough shots. Teams use a ton of clock against us. They take a long time to try to get a basket. So I think honestly it just wears on teams, and eventually they just wear down and wear out as the second half goes along.
Derek, I want to ask you the second part of this question. Do you think all that stuff said from Fan and then taking your own thoughts into consideration, will the defense still be elite next year without Barry, as he notes, the best defender on the team, Dean, a good defender, of course, and then he says Cam, in his words, he says a far better defender than people give him credit for. So can K-State still be an elite defensive team next year?
I guess it comes down to what you think elite is. But my answer to the last question would be because it's a cultural thing. Like, it's something that this program cares about. It's something that they put time in, something they stress, something they emphasize. It's probably better this year because they have the personnel to do it even more than what they typically would. But they've been kind of recruiting for this as well. So while it won't be as good as it is this year and not many things will be next year, it will still be a very good defensive team.
Yeah, I'd just add that with this group of players, these three seniors, they finished 25, 33rd, 21st, and now they're 4th in a defensive efficiency according to KenPom. I could see them dropping maybe into the 30s next year, but the worst Bruce team was the team that fell apart in 2015, which they finished still in the top 70 in efficiency defense. So they might slide a little bit, but I would say they'll still be a top 50 team
and that
on
speaks
defense.
well to, and I would agree with all you guys with what Derek said. I guess it depends what your definition of elite is, but I think we're all in agreement they will be a good defensive basketball team next year. What player, still Scott Wildcat here, what player has surprised you? We're talking about negative surprise, not a good surprise, so maybe most disappointing this season. His candidates would be maybe Cardi for being so hot and cold, Trice for not figuring out how to get minutes, or Sean Williams, who he thinks could be a victim of fan hype. So it could be those guys, anybody else. Derek, starting with you. Who's been the most surprisingly underperforming player this year for K-State basketball?
I think the correct answer is probably Cartier Jara. They just expected more from him. But in terms of, maybe this team reaching its absolute ceiling, the missing piece was supposed to be Austin Trice, so not having that is kind of debilitating in that way. But having Cartier Jara take a step back from last year is probably the most disappointing.
Yeah, I'd say it's got to be Cardi. He's dropped from an offensive rating to 100 to 86. 3-point is dropped from 41% to 27%. 2-point is from 52% to 44%. Free throw percentage has dropped as well, 72% to 68%. So almost his turnover rate is worse. His assist rate is worse. So, it's hard to find. He's a better defensive rebounder this year and better offensive rebounder slightly. So he has improved rebounding, and the whole team has. But the drop on offense has really been a surprise. I'm not surprised that he's dropped a little bit, but it's been a little more pronounced than I expected it would. But I've made the comparison to Wesley Iwundu. His numbers are very similar from his freshman to sophomore year. So I'm not giving up on Cardi at all, and I'm not down on him. I'm just saying realistically he's probably the most disappointing player as far as his drop off.
I would have said the same. I think Austin Trice you can bring up. I wouldn't even mention Sean Williams in that personally. I get it, like a guy he does have a lot of hype, and he's not playing a lot. But I think for a true freshman, I think he's all right. This next question from Scott says that assuming at least one player with eligibility leaves after the season concludes, basketball still, do you see Bruce trying to fill that with a prep prospect, a JUCO, a sit-out, or a grad transfer? So a lot of speculation here. The point of the question is let's assume there's a roster spot open, probably a big leagues with eligibility left. So, he's asking what do you see Bruce doing? So I guess that's the question I'll ask is what do you see K-State doing to fill that spot, assuming they have it and you get to do kind of what you want with it?
My guess would be they would go after a transfer of some sort, probably a grad transfer first, because I would think you would want an immediate impact guy and maybe a 1-year player, 2-year player at the most, because they've got a decent amount of young players. They've got a good core group coming in next year. So maybe one more what they might consider a missing piece that can score a little bit to make next year's team a little bit better, to maybe even bump it from an NIT to an NCAA team or something like that, so that they're not having a major drop-off season where it's just a 500 season or worse, but still progressing. Obviously, most of us think next year will probably be a little bit less than what we have this year, but whatever you can do to get a player that fits and can help that team be a little bit better.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think a grad transfer is probably what I would concentrate on because you're losing 3 pretty big-time contributors, obviously. And like, Fan said, they're kind of okay with the younger classes in terms of distribution. And just because if it was a big leaving doesn't mean you have to replace them with another big. They're probably going to have enough interchangeable parts there. I would just go after a scorer, really.
Yeah, I would. I'll answer this one too because I think it's a good one. They're all good ones, but Yeah, I think grad transfer wing score is, those three things together. A guy who maybe gives you some positional versatility between the 3 and the 4. Maybe, if you could get a second or, Xavier Sneed type player would make a lot of sense because the only real big they have, unless you count Levi too, would be Mack, coming back. But I think they need scoring. So, yeah, somebody just like Dedrick Lawson, just have him transfer in. Yeah, that'd be fun. So do that. This is Scott Wildcat's last question of this segment. He has some more later on, I'm pretty sure. Of all the new head coaches in the Big 12 for football, so let's think of who they are first, right? Of course, Chris Kleiman, Matt Wells. Who am I forgetting?
Neil Brown.
Neil Brown at West Virginia.
Les Miles.
Les Miles at Kansas. So Chris Kleiman, Neil Brown, Matt Wells, Les Miles. 2 questions. We'll go with DY and then fan on both of these in that order. One, who will have the highest high of those 4 coaches? Kleiman, Wells, Brown, Miles. Highest high.
I would probably say Neil Brown probably comes to mind first for me, just because he's kind of was more of, I thought, the most qualified, complete candidate out of everyone that was probably up for grabs. And his highs were pretty high at Troy, just like Coach Kleiman's were high at North Dakota State. An offensive-minded coach, and I think kind of that type of coach has had success at West Virginia, and they're a little bit in a better place for recruiting ground anyway. So I think if we're talking about the highest high, it's probably Neil Brown, but I know this is coming up in the next question. I think he's going to be up and down quite a bit.
I mean, I don't want to be a homer, but part of me leans toward Kleiman just because he returns a quarterback that's played. You never know about the Oklahoma transfer to West Virginia. Could be a difference maker. I don't know how good he is. But that's what I look for first. I anticipate Tech being a completely different system, so it's hard to say. So as far as when I say highest impact, I think the biggest win, like the biggest upset, and I would say that could be K-State and Kleiman next year. Miles, who knows with KU? I mean, I think their roster's in really bad shape, and I don't think they've made it much better, so it's hard for me to see them having a big win. But I could see Kleiman pulling an upset win next year just because I think Thompson's a good quarterback,
right,
and we've got some good pieces back, so we'll see.
And then same coaches, who stays at their school the longest out of those 4? Again, Les Miles, Chris Kleiman, Neil Brown, and Matt Wells. Who stays at their school the longest? DY?
I think it's Chris Kleiman because I think he's going to win. I mean, it's my opinion. I think he's going to win enough, to stay there, for, a fair amount of time. And I think that he intends to stay there for a fair amount of time. He seems like the type of coach that kind of wants to set down roots once he gets to where he is, and it seems like he's kind of made that for him. Neil Brown, I mean, we have some information, how he was kind of pursuing other jobs in terms of what he was looking for. And, I think he's kind of an upward mobility coach, and I'm not sure he's going to find what he wants at West Virginia, regardless if he has success or not. And I just don't think Matt Wells or Les Miles, neither one, is going to have the success required to stay very long.
I would go number 1, Kleiman. I think he's at his destination job in many ways. I think he's a good fit. I would say Wells second maybe because I think they might be patient with him. They were with Cliff. And I agree with you on Brown. I think if he has success there, I think he's going to jump to an SEC job. And if he doesn't have success there, he might reach a point much quicker than Holgerson did in getting out. I mean, Holgerson left a pretty good situation. I think he got a pretty good one in Houston, but he obviously left. And I'm just not sold on Miles. I'm like, I think you've mentioned it before. I didn't think he was going to be Charlie Weiss. He still might not be. But I'm leaning more that way than I was when he was first hired.
Same. We're going to move on from Scott Wildcat for a little while. We're going to go to Black Emaw has a number for us. And these are some fun ones for sure. Some serious ones, some joking ones. Let's start with this one. Derek first. Who will be the player that improves the most this season under Chris Kleiman?
Ooh, you almost had to think about it for a little bit. I'll probably say it should be a defensive player since he's a defensive-minded coach, and you would think that's where, his impact will be, felt the quickest. And a guy that I thought underachieved this past year, but I think has a high ceiling potential, and this is without me thinking much about the rest of the roster, that comes to mind is A.J. Parker. I've always thought that he is, you know, he's kind of got that size and length of the prototype corner. So I kind of love him and the what his potential is. So well, I guess for me, AJ Parker, just because what his ceiling and potential is and how he underachieved last year.
Sorry, Kurt just walked in. Finish it off again, Derek. Who'd you say again?
I think it's AJ Parker.
AJ Parker, perfect. Fan, who do you got?
I could see one of the young linebackers. I agree. I think a front seven guy fits Kleiman. I think it fits Hazleton's defense as well. And kind of looking at some of the things they did at Wyoming, I'm not sure which guy it could be. I really liked how Justin Hughes played at the end of the year. I think he could be a difference maker. But I think it's going to be one of those front seven guys and probably a linebacker because we have some guys I think have some explosive ability in there.
I could throw one out there then Elijah Sullivan because he didn't play last year and he has a tremendous amount of ability.
Yeah, he would be really good too.
Yeah, I mean, Kurtz, we're going to bring you in hot on this, and I'll explain to you, too, since Flanders didn't explain it all. I listened to what it was.
I just interrupted you with what's up.
The thing is, we're going through Ask. We have probably 100 questions here, so I may not ask all three of you all three questions, and if you don't have something, like, significantly different to say, don't just repeat Derek because Derek sounds smart. Just say ditto, tap him on the shoulder, wink at me, whatever it is. But the first question, we've got answers of they both said the wrong answer so far. There's an obvious easy answer. We've got A.J. Parker, and then do we have Elijah Sullivan? Is that who we went with? Who'd you go with?
Or Hughes.
Or Justin Hughes. Mm-hmm. Question is this. What player improves the most next season under Chris Kleiman?
I like that. Maybe Reggie Walker. You could add Reggie Walker into it.
It's all of the D-line. I'm going to take the quarterback who will get to take every snap with the ones next year as opposed to the guy who split the time with Alex Delton all year. I would say Skylar Thompson will be the most improved player. But you guys all like defense, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Kleiman's a defensive-minded guy. I just think that's probably where his impact will be felt the quickest, and he's also a defensive backs coach. So,
what about? Let me think about this one. Like Scott France, like offensive line with Connor Riley.
It could be. I mean, there's no right answer. We're just joking around. I'm just saying I'm surprised that no one took. You know, we talked so much last week about Skylar Thompson, how important it is to be a guy who gets all the reps and all the snaps and play through that, and then no one takes him as the guy who could improve the most in this scenario. I'm just criticizing you guys. Have some fun with the podcast. Jeez Louise. All right, next question. If you could take any player from the Big 12 to be I think you asked this question, but you didn't say all this on the air, Kurtz. If you could take any player from the Big 12 to be traded for Barry Brown, who would you take?
Yeah, that was basically what I was saying. Like, take somebody from. So I have to trade Barry Brown for
that's
somebody.
the question. You have to trade Barry Brown for somebody. Who you doing? Who you trading?
Boy, I don't like. Fan, who's the best defensive guard in the league outside of like? Can Shayok defend? Because like Shayok's my sort of reaction there. Alex Robinson maybe.
Yeah.
Can he defend? Can Alex Robinson defend?
I think Alex Robinson can do a lot of things well. He annoyed me a lot watching him play.
Yeah.
Because he's so good at what he does. So,
who would you take? Give me a name.
See, when I approached this question, it was just, can you add someone for free? And so I was thinking shooters.
Yeah,
and
you
all
made up
that.
your own question. He wrote it differently than that.
Yeah, I did phrase it a little bit differently. You know, if you're losing Barry,
this is a trade, so you are taking it for the other team too.
So I have to consider what I'm giving the other team, basically?
Probably. I'll give you my answer. Dedrick Lawson, again.
I know you love Dedrick Lawson.
He's the best player in the league. I'll take the best player in the league on my team and figure it out. That's my guy.
So your guard, then Cartier-Jada is going to have to play a lot more.
Sure.
Mike Girl.
I would be thrilled to start Dean Wade and Dedrick Lawson as my 4 and 5 and put Cartier-Jada in the lineup. I'd be thrilled to do it.
But Dedrick Lawson can't really defend. Not a great defender.
He's the best player in the league. Would you rather have Barry Brown or Dedrick Lawson on your team?
I mean, on this K-State team?
Sure.
I mean, I guess I would go Dedrick Lawson. I guess. But it's close, man, because Barry Brown fits so perfectly what this team does. Like, he's a really good embodiment of what the team is. I'm going to go Shayok.
Shayok. Who do you got, Derek? You've had 5 minutes to think of this sitting there.
I really don't. I don't have any. I wanted to send Barry. I want to take the best player from the worst team. That's kind of what I wanted to do, just so I don't make anyone else good.
Say a name.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's Oklahoma State's best player? Like Looney Waters or something? I don't.
Probably.
Cameron Griff, probably. I would go Alex Robinson or Jarrett Culver. One of those two
Culver.
would be
Yeah.
one of my
Yeah.
choices. I think Alex Robinson is a distributor, gets to the paint. I think, we really don't have that kind of point guard. And then Culver, can kind of do it all as a slasher and is a good defender. So one of those two is who I'd pick.
I like all. I mean, yeah, Culver and Lawson are my top two. Shaq would be 3. After that, it would. I don't even know. It'd be a big drop off. I like Robinson, but yeah, I just take the best player and go from there. Hypothetically, K-State's campus burns to the ground. You have to move to a new city. You have 5 seconds to answer. I'm going to start with Fan. K-State campus burns to the ground. You have to move the city. Where do you move K-State?
Does it have to be in Kansas?
No. I guess not.
Kansas City, Kansas.
There you go. DY.
Kansas City. I don't have to go far.
Yeah, but what about Overland Park? Let's
You
go
sure
Overland
could
Park.
say Overland
Yeah.
Park. Overland Park, is that your answer?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'd go Wichita, no doubt about it. I mean, Kansas City already owned by Kansas. I think you got to
True,
Wichita,
true.
and you can own
Cancun of the Plains.
Yeah, and you can own that state. I'd go to Wichita for sure. All right, guys, how many K-State games do you have in your DVR right now? DY,
0.
Kurtz.
I don't think I have any because I switched to, but this is only because I switched to Hulu Live, and I can't get it to automatically record K-State games. It's a pain. I can't figure it out. So basically, I'm dumb. That's why.
0?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can help you out with that. I've got Hulu Live as well. I've got it set up to record every K-State game. I really don't go back and watch them very often because I don't have time, but it does it automatically. So every football and basketball game that K-State's played this year is on there.
Still, so you'd have 30?
Yeah, whatever we've played so
31.
far.
Yeah.
They're there.
I don't have any either. Would you guys put mayo on your grilled cheese?
No.
No?
I think I would. I like mayo a lot.
I think it'd be okay.
I do. Yeah.
No, I would not.
No? Okay. Okay, I would do it. I would try it. All right, guys, you have to answer this. I don't want to hear one dance around it, not say a name. If you guys don't say a name, I'm making Flanders turn off the recorder, and we're not doing this podcast anymore. Who gets married first out of the KSO crew? Fan, you're up first. First marriage out of the KSO crew.
I think it's going to be Flando.
Love it. DY?
Lando.
Love it.
Matt Hall.
I mean, that's a name, and it's not wrong. So, and I will say, too, Derek Young's obviously the answer, but Flando's a fun one. So we're going to move on to some more questions.
Squirming over here.
She's not listening to this one.
Good. From Black Emos. And buy or sells, guys. You ready? Buy or sell is buy or sell. As you notice, they don't have a hold in this, so you're not allowed to use hold. You can't play them, but you got to pick buy or sell. We're going to go the same order on all these, so everyone's ready for it. We're going to go Kurtz. We're going to go DY. We're going to go Fan. We're going to do the first one slowly so we can all get in a rhythm and get ready to answer it. Buy or sell. If there is big disagreement, I'll come in. If not, I'll just keep my mouth shut. Scotty Hazelton leaves after 1 year of K-State being a top 25 defense. Buy or sell, Kurtz?
Sell. I understand why that question would be asked because he has jumped a lot to jobs up the ladder, but I'll say sell.
I think you'll be tempted, but sell.
I'd say sell as well.
3 sells. Easy enough. Move on to question number 2. Will Coach Chris Kleiman serve his entire contract, I believe 6 years, at K-State? So, will Coach Kleiman coach at K-State at least 6 years, John Kurtz?
I'm going to buy.
I'm going to buy her.
I'm going to buy.
Bye.
2 buys.
I'm buying.
3, I would have bought it too. I mean, no one's saying sell on this because 1, we probably don't believe it, and then 2, then we have to explain, well, he's not going to make it 6 years. So, lose there. All right, guys. Sandstorm has played more the rest of this season. So this is an over-under kind of numbers question. You're buying or selling this. There'll be more plays of Sandstorm the rest of this year in basketball than football wins for K-State next year. So do you predict more playing of Sandstorm or more football wins next year?
Football wins.
Football wins.
Yeah.
So you're selling it.
Yeah, right. Selling.
Technically,
Sorry.
yeah, it's okay. I'm like Alex Trebek here. I got to say, so phrase it in the form of a question, please.
I'm selling. I'd say Sandstorm max is 3 times.
Yeah, I think
the rest
2
this
or 3
year.
times. Yeah.
I think we'll get more than that. Football wins.
So.
So I'm going to ask this one. I'll just do to Derek Young. You guys can answer it, but I think I'll give Derek Young a chance to expand on his answer some on this one. K-State will land more than half of the visitors from this past junior day. So you're buying or selling the idea of landing more than half of those kids. DY.
I'll say buy, because I think that they're going to land at least Matthew Roberts, Nate Matlack, Hayden Pauls, and Kai Thomas. And that would get you to four of the 8. So one more, you have to land Turner Corcoran or Dante Manning, and I think they can do that. Yep, because I think Corcoran's leaning towards K-State. So I'll say buy.
Would you guys, after reading the stuff or talking about the stuff, shorter answers than DY, but you buying or selling more than half of those junior day kids ending up at K-State? Let's start with Kurtz.
My gut was to say sell, but I don't know near as much about it as DY. I'm just kind of, I guess I'm still in the old mindset of what recruiting was like, so it's hard for me to jump on and say buy. But I mean, hey, I'm gonna piggyback on DY. I'll say buy.
Yeah, I'd say buy. There seemed to be good synergy with what was going on that day, with what you saw on social media, with what DY has said about it. It's hard for me to not be real positive about what happened with that junior day visit.
Everyone's buying it. I don't want to say this name wrong. I think it's D. Korth KSU. He has a few questions for us. I might ask him individually to each of you guys instead of, because we got a lot of questions to go, and a lot of good questions to go. So let's start. I'm going to go one for each. Fan, this is going to be you first. As of today, who is your starting 5 basketball for next season, as I understand this?
Yeah, I think I posted this earlier today. Sean Neal Williams, Mike McGurl, Cardi, X, and Mac.
Yep.
It's pretty easy.
I think so. I don't think anybody else you can really sell for that. I'm going to ask DY this one from D. Korth KSU. Where should we expect Chris Kleiman's recruiting classes ranked on a yearly basis, like an average annual ranking for Kleiman's classes? Kleiman's classes?
Kleiman's class. I would say in the 40s is fair, because I think that gets you, perhaps a couple 4 stars, a decent amount of high 3 stars, and the rest, fill out the rest of the way. So I think 40 is fair, and I think some years they'll be better than that, and maybe a year or two where you're a little bit below that. But I think an average in the 40s is probably what you should be hoping for at Kansas State, because I think that's, especially if you have the coaching staff that you believe in and you think is the right one, I think you can win with that.
Putting you on the spot, Kurtz, because this is probably the hardest of the 3, because you got to pick a name and you got to show some belief in one of these young men. What freshman could create the biggest impact for football next year? What freshman football recruit? We can run off names at you. We can do whatever we need. But who are you feeling? Who are you feeling out of that group for next year?
I mean, my gut instinct is to go running back, right? Because of all of that, but just because of necessity. So, like Joe Irvin.
Yeah.
And I'll give credit to DY. I was thinking Price. So we were talking about that a little bit the other day, but he made a good point. Irvin's probably more ready.
DY doesn't know. He doesn't know that kind of stuff.
So with an assist to DY, I say Joe Irvin.
Would you agree with the Joe Irvin pick?
It's, you got the best chance of being right. Yep.
Fair enough. All right. I think this is Ning Lu 86. I think I'm saying it right. If I'm wrong, if it's, please tell me. He has 10 questions. Within many of them are 2 or 3 questions, so this might be a 30-question segment from Ning Lu 86, but I have read through them and they're good. So here we go back to the same thing where I might just call in a couple of you for each one. Let's go right back to Kurtz, put him right back in the spot because this looked like a tough one to me. Name me an offensive player or a couple of guys who come to mind. He says he's smart. He says, other than Skylar Thompson or Nick Lenners, you can't say Skylar Thompson or Nick Lenners. That may be a better fit for what you saw from maybe Chris Kleiman's system. This is offense, in your time down in Frisco watching that team. So just a name or two that you think, man, maybe we didn't see a lot from this guy, but now under Chris Kleiman and under this offense, perhaps he will be good. But again, the trick is you can't say the 2 obvious ones, which are Skylar Thompson or Nick Lenners.
Right. So that is very tricky. That is very tricky because I'm just thinking out loud here. I mean, really the only position, I can't go quarterback then. There's no running backs, so I can't really go running back.
There's no running.
Would you like to say Isaiah Zuber or no?
Right. I mean, like that's kind of where I'm getting to, unless
I'll give you a little help here.
I don't know, like is Harder still around? Like at fullback, could that be an answer?
Harder.
That's a decent answer. I think Josh Rivas might be a good answer. He didn't even play a ton, but he's one of those big, powerful offensive linemen that they love to use in North Dakota State. And out of all the offensive linemen they have, he probably reflects what they prefer the most.
I like the mention of harder. I think offensive lineman's a smart way to go because he values different things. So I'm going to throw the other one at Fan, and you guys can help him if he comes up with an answer. It's tough because Ninglu makes it tough again. Now, same on offense. A player, tell me somebody who's a worse fit, and he takes away the best one, Chris Herron. Tell me somebody who's now a worse fit for this offense than maybe you think it was before. A guy who you don't know how they're going to fit in to this lineup.
I would honestly, my lean is toward a receiver, and I would go toward Schoen or Ryder maybe, because when you watch them, they've got either long, lanky receivers out wide catching it, or they've got slots that run in motion and do the fly sweeps a lot. And Zuber can do that kind of thing. And Schoen could probably be that outside receiver, so maybe Zach Reuter, and where's he going to –
still around?
Hey, you think he graduated?
No, he's a senior.
gone.
No.
Okay, I thought maybe you were right. I was like, man.
No, you're right. You're right. I was looking at the wrong list.
Sebastian Taylor might be a good answer.
Sebastian Taylor, I would say, could be, but he is that tall receiver, so outside, he may be a fit. It could be Landry Weber, was in the mix a little bit.
Right.
So my lean would be toward a receiver, but I think Zuber can do some things in this offense. So
I'm curious to ask you, DY. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were talking about the offensive line, right? They kind of want a different fit of offensive line play here and what they're recruiting. So who doesn't fit really the mold of what they have offensive line-wise?
I mean, Tyler Mitchell's not a great fit, but he also is, came on at the end of last year, just like the rest of the offensive line. But he's, in terms of offensive line preference, he's kind of a little bit of a shorter arm player, not someone with a lot of length or a lot of, girth. So he kind of comes to mind. I think Blaise Gammon, they asked their tight ends to do a lot, and I think he's pretty one-dimensional.
I mean, the other one you don't know yet, but at center, they pulled their center a lot, and I'm not sure that Holdorf is built to do that. They seemed like a smaller center that could move in space, and they pulled their center a ton at North Dakota State. And I don't know if they're going to do that same thing here. So that's a hard thing for a center to do, to be able to snap the ball, make all the calls, and to pull and get on the edge and block people. So that may be a guy that you look at as well. It's tough to know without seeing exactly what we're going to do next year too.
We're going to flip sides of the ball and ask very similar questions. I might avoid the first half of this one, which is asking who's a better fit. You guys all mentioned front seven guys as guys who be most improved, so I imagine you'd go back to the same well for good fits on defense. So let's ask the negative part of his question. Anybody on this defensive roster, we'll go with DY, and then if you guys have a different answer, throw it in there. Who that you think maybe played a lot last year, now you wonder how does he fit in to what Chris Kleiman does, or is he going to be a fit for this unit in Manhattan?
Man, I kind of go back to the front seven a little bit because they like to, get the pressure on the quarterback with just four, and I'm not sure this defensive line is necessarily built to do that, especially in the middle. When you talk about someone, especially like Jordan Minnie or Trey Deshawn, who haven't been really pass rush specialists for defensive tackles. Joe Davies will probably look a lot better in this type of defense because that was kind of his forte, but they're going to want more pass rushing out of their defensive tackles than maybe Kansas State got the past couple of years.
Honestly,
Mitty, yeah.
Mitty makes a lot of sense. Trey Deshawn, for whatever reason, was the first name that popped into my head, too. I mean, I guess basically the same sort of logic there. But I guess I was mainly thinking him because he's a guy that clearly was, pretty relied upon. He had a big impact in last year's defense and maybe takes a step back as far as that is concerned, just with the fit. I like Trey Deshawn a lot, and I do think he has a lot of potential and a good player. They can probably find a way to use him. Sorry, Trey. I really like you, man.
Kind of a long question, so we'll get short answers on this one. Who will be the starting safety by Denzel Goolsby next season, beside Goolsby? DY. Jared McPherson.
How about Jonathan Alexander?
Jonathan Alexander.
I can't pick Keenan Garber.
You could. I mean,
no.
He's a corner.
He's a corner, but you could put him there.
Is he a corner? He wasn't playing safety at Free State?
He played corner.
Okay.
Malik Berry played safety.
Oh, okay. That must be what I'm thinking of. Yeah. I thought McPherson, whatever.
There's no fear in McPherson.
Yeah, it'll be McPherson or Alexander, I would think, unless Wayne Jones comes on too.
I mean, I just because he's been there, right? Like McPherson. But again, I'm stuck in the old way of thinking where it's like, first year guys
will still matter. You know, I mean, I think that's a great point though. We shouldn't throw away any first year guy like we're used to for the last 15 years.
I mean, right? They're going to be more first year guys playing next year than we've seen.
But we shouldn't run to the other side and say, well, experience won't matter anymore because it might still matter some. So, out of those names, who do you like at the other safety spot?
Probably McPherson for now.
I think he's a good player. I'd
be
say
my
McPherson.
first guess.
DY thinks he's really bad, but
Oh, I like McPherson too.
I'm just gonna criticize anything you guys.
I rolled the dice a little bit on mine.
No, it's fun. You get a more fun answer than these lamos, right? I would have picked Alexander.
I agree. That was a more
the whole
fun
time.
answer. Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's move on to a next one. Ning Lu says he knows Chris Kleiman really wants to add an impact tight end. Doesn't look likely at this point. So he has two questions about tight end. What do you think about Chabastin Taylor at tight end? I will say I talked to a K-State coach about this off the record, and I didn't get a lot of a reaction, but I think they're not super aware yet of who, Chabastin Taylor is or how he fits. So let's go. Kurtz got excited with that. So let's go over to Kurtz. Any chance that they could use him at a position like that? They want a couple pass-catching tight ends. Any chance Chabastin Taylor's a guy they could look at there?
I guess a lot of it does probably depend on how they evaluate him because, they've been spending so much time recruiting. I don't know how much they've been able to evaluate everybody, but at least the way it was trending, it didn't feel like he was going to get a ton of playing time at receiver. So I guess my logic is he does have size enough that would make it fairly tantalizing. So why not give it a shot? I would like to see it, honestly, if he is going to be sort of roadblocked at receiver.
I'm going to ask you another question about tight ends. Will Connor Fox be ready to step in and not redshirt next year?
I don't think he's going to have a choice. I think he's probably going to have to play at least, he could still redshirt and play 4 games. I think that's probably what the roadmap will be for him.
Fair enough. Let's go over to Fan. I need you to look in the future a little bit, Fan. This is not about this year, it's about the future. If you don't know this, K-State's got this big NFL draft streak. I think it's 107 straight drafts. Back to win.
It's true.
Back to win.
Leads the country.
I can't think of the commissioner before Tagliabue. Who is commissioner before Tagliabue?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was a couple guys before him.
Me.
It was Derek Young. So if you're looking into the future, not this season because Dalton Reiser's going to go possibly in the first round. Next year, who can keep that draft streak going for Kansas State?
I would lean toward one of the offensive linemen. You could see Scott France being the guy that could be drafted. And then on defense, it's hard to know, but, I go back to what we talked about earlier. I think we're going to see some different development with these defensive guys, with Kleiman and Hazelton coming in, and all these new coaches coming in. It's just going to be different, and you never know if one of these guys could step up and be that next guy drafted as well.
Any other names you pop out? You think, boy, this guy's an NFL player that maybe Fan didn't say, either of you guys?
Reggie Walker kind of has the pedigree of being a highly recruited kid.
Big freshman year, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably on some radars because of that.
I wish Reggie Walker was a little bit longer, and I'd probably feel the same way. I guess if I'm going a defender, I would say maybe if Elijah Sullivan busts out, he's kind of got the measurables that kind of fits the modern-day linebacker in the NFL. I would lean towards Scott France, and I think I have for a while now, for who might come out of that class and get drafted. The concern, at least from behind the scenes, is he's had some bad ankles and bad knees to where they don't know how much longevity might be in him. So that would be the concern there. I guess I'll throw out a name, maybe James Gilbert at running back.
I think we've covered a lot of bases there. The next one I really like from Ning Lu, I'm not gonna ask it though because it gives away the questions about strength and conditioning stuff. You could just say the words. What's up?
Oh, okay. I was gonna go grab a drink real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody want?
I do not. The question was about strength and conditioning under Chris Dawson, which I'm not going to talk about because Derek wrote about it in the recruiting diary for Friday morning. So we're going to make you pay and read that instead of getting it here on the podcast. Next question. I'm going to ask both you guys this. I'm going to ask DY because he watched the offense really close down in Frisco, and then Fan because he's charted a lot of stuff from their offense too. Criticism of the pass regime of quarterbacks not being allowed to throw receivers open. Do you guess that will change under Chris Kleiman? Will they allow a little bit more boldness, from that position to throw guys open, or is it going to be the same thing it was where it seems like a guy, I'll go with Derek first, where a guy has to be open before the quarterback will look his way?
So the question's more about
will they throw a man? Will they allow a quarterback to throw a man open?
To throw with anticipation, and I think that's why he's had NFL quarterback. He had, the Carson Wentz was in that system, and Easton Stick's probably going to get drafted. They anticipate throws, and that's why they're kind of ready-made for the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree. The key is going to be next year how far can Skyler come after the old system to the new system. That's a hard adjustment to make if you really – I honestly don't know how – I'm sure we were certainly safe in the way we threw it. I think that was a little bit overdone by some of our fans.
Sure.
They weren't allowed to do it at all. I'm not quite sure I buy that, but I do think it's going to be quite a change for Skyler from what we did before. So I do think that will play into how well we can do that next year.
I'm going to skip question 8 from Ning Lu, another very well-written question that I appreciate, but it's all asking Derek to break down some really detailed recruiting stuff, which we'll try to keep on the site, at least at this point. I'm going to ask Kurtz this one, and this is a tough one, as I always give him to Kurtz. Ning Lu asks, knowing what you know now regarding Bill Snyder and how he handled in Ning Lu's words, quote, forced retirement, what do you think would have happened if K-State had beaten Iowa State and gone to a bowl game? Of course, no one knows the answer to this. He's just asking to make a prediction. What would have happened if K-State had beat Iowa State and gone to a bowl game?
I just think it would have been messier. I think Gene was pretty dead set on what needed to happen, and I don't think a win and an extra bowl game there was really going to change it. So it's crazy to say this, and it's weird to say this, and it was fun when they were winning the game, but I think it probably saved a little bit more face for K-State in the long term in terms of what was going to happen. Because I'm to the point where Gene Taylor handled things like a pro, and Gene Taylor definitely had an idea of what he wanted to do, I think, for a long time. And I think he was going to find a way to make that happen. And I don't think that the other key here is I don't think just a win and getting to 6-6 was going to do enough to put enough blowback on it from the other side, right? Like, I don't think that was going to be the thing that put enough support of people in Bill Snyder's corner on that to really push back and stop Gene Taylor from doing that.
Well said for me. Does anybody feel different? Does anyone feel significant for Bill Snyder's back if he wins that game? Fans shaking his head. I'm shaking my head.
I don't think so. I think it changed when it happened.
Yeah, so same as Kurtz. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Number 10, he asked to speculate on players who would have transferred if Snyder retired. Again, perfectly fair question, all for it, but if we start throwing out, so-and-so is close to leaving or close to leaving, that could reflect poorly on that kid. So we're just going to skip it in this public forum. Going to scan down. Oh, there's a nice gif of The Rock from KSU fan. So Scott Wildcat asks kind of an open-ended question, and I'm going to let you guys decide whatever it means to you. I don't care how you mean it. Okay, you're feeling me, so I'm going to start with Fan. You guys answer this however you want. His question says, how would you like the SEC Challenge to look next year?
I don't care about any of the other 9 games, but South Carolina and the Octagon of Doom is what I want to see.
How about 10 times? How about they play 10 games? 5 in Columbia or Columbus, 5 in Manhattan. That's a great.
Just one bringing Frank back would be enough for me.
That's a great answer to this question. You guys have tough to top. Tough to top. And I'm going to let Kurtz wait because I go to Kurtz first every time. So, DY, I'm going to touch you to make you feel comfortable and feel good about this. How would you like the SEC Challenge to look next year?
I want to play Kentucky again.
There you go. That's a good thing to
win. I just like beefing up the non-conference schedule somehow. And if you can't, if you have a hard time scheduling non-conference games in general, which sounds like they do, then I would like it to find a better opponent within the realm that you have to schedule a non-conference game anyway.
The other thing that has been tossed around on the board a little bit, that I'm cutting in on Kurtz here.
No, good, because I dropped my phone.
I wondered what that was confused.
I like the idea that has been brought about to not schedule the game until January to get a better matchup, perhaps. I mean, we're seeing some other leagues doing it. Conference USA this year, they don't have their last 4 games scheduled, but they're taking all their teams and putting them in tiers. And so the top 5 teams will play each other at the end of their conference schedule. And then the next 5 teams will play each other. And so they're trying to build up for the tournament. Next year, there's another Atlantic 10, Atlantic Sun, or some other conference is doing something similar. So it can be done. We used to have the Bracket Buster Challenge back in the day that wasn't scheduled till January. So doing something where you end up with K-State not going to A&M and West Virginia not playing Tennessee would be kind of a nice switch. Logistically, it's tougher, but I do like that idea.
That's some very dynamic scheduling there. I like that a lot.
They've taken a lot of good answers for this.
Yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else that excites me outside of playing Frank. Playing Kentucky would be exciting. I mean, like maybe Florida. I guess it would be kind of cool to play Florida, although that has happened in somewhat recent memory when they played them at Sprint Center.
It'd be Kentucky at home would be the caveat there, too.
Yeah, that would be good.
Mine would be 4-point shot. If I could add anything I want to the SEC Big 12 Challenge next year, give me a 4-point shot in that challenge only. See how it plays out. I mean, that kind of thing, like the Big 3 we used to watch on TV. So that would be mine. I said answer it however you want. I'm going to put mine in there. So
you watch that?
We did watch it. We did watch it. Baron Davis out there just dominating. Mike Bibby is in great shape. Who else did we see in that thing? Scalabrini, I believe. It was a good thing. It was a good league. I'm surprised it's not competing with the NBA, quite honestly, at this point. Back to Black Ema. These are all fun questions. These are all good. Kurtz, what are your thoughts on paying players in college athletics?
So I am very pro. You got to find some way to let these kids benefit, and I don't have a perfect solution, but I think a big step in the right direction would be to let them profit off their likeness. I understand a lot of the argument is, well, what about the rowing team or whatever and all that? Well, I mean, this is America, and if you can profit off your likeness, if you can, in capitalism, make something off of what you're doing and how valuable your skill set is, I think that's a good start. I mean, there's always a story about Chris Webber saying he was walking past the store where they're selling his jersey and he has to eat ramen because he can't afford food. Sell their jerseys, let them take a cut of it. Johnny Manziel, if they're going to sell some autographs and that type of thing, I think you let them do that. I think if you're stopping them from doing that, yes, would there be some unintended consequences from that? Probably, yes. But this whole college, now we're getting into the structure of college athletics. I mean, it's just kind of a sham if you're trying to stop them from doing that just for the sake of preserving this ancient model of things that you have. So that would be my quickest solution.
Anybody vehemently opposed to Kurtz's idea or have a different way they would feel about it?
No? I agree. I
either,
kind of like that idea of being able to make money off shirts, whatever they can market themselves. I think they should be able to do that.
Then Fan could make some sweet shirts and just give the players a kickback.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to do that. I mean, I've been stopped. That's why I've been stopped for selling shirts multiple times.
I'm worried that you guys aren't big enough video game nerds that you're going to give a good answer to this. I'm going to try Kurtz, though, because I feel like Kurtz maybe will feel this pain enough. How much would you sacrifice? Again, open-ended, I guess, say however you want to say it. How much would you sacrifice to have a fully licensed NCAA football and NCAA basketball, both games back on the market this year? So, how much would you sacrifice? Like, how important would it be? Something like that. Give me some sort of idea.
I would go. Okay, first of all, the NCAA basketball games are never that good. If I could get like a 2K,
there was a 2K version. I was going to say.
For sake of basketball discussion, I'm going to say there's like a 2K level NCAA basketball game.
Was?
So like but like. I still don't think it was as good as like what
I'm
NBA 2K
you played the
is
EA.
right now.
I'm worried you must have played the EA one.
No, I did play 2K too.
Oh.
It was better. I mean, that was the one that I played much
enough.
more. It was better. But if I get 2 equal products there, like we're talking a lot. Like I'm trying to get more creative than just like money, because I'd probably pay like a couple $100 for those games.
Would you spend 2 weeks in jail? Like you're not, work understands that you're not getting penalized.
Jail or prison?
Jail. 2 weeks in county jail.
Is it like one of those rich jails or like?
It's pretty nice. Like there's a ping pong table. It's not real nice. You know, like
Okay.
you don't have a PS4 or an Xbox.
And if I
One in
do
there.
this, does it unlock the game for everybody? Like
Everyone
I'm
gets
a
it.
hero. I'm kind of a.
Yeah, but you're not going to get praised for it. So everyone would get the game, and you would know you did it, and we would kind of know, but it's not like there'd be like this national story like,
Okay.
hey, guys, John Kurtz took a nap for 2 weeks in the county jail, and you guys all got this game. You know what I mean? So there'd be some
Well, you know what? I
some
love
praise,
I love
but-
you guys all so much. You all out there, yes, I would go to jail for 2 weeks so that the rest of the world could have it. And I'm such a humble dude that I don't even care that people know.
Anybody else care about that game enough? I care about it.
If that deal ever comes to the table, though, I'm coming back to you.
Hey, I'm here. You know where to find me.
Gosh, I still play NCAA 14 on occasion on the PS3. His last question here, and I'm going to make a caveat to it because, you know, I don't like easy answers. The question he asks is take any player from the NFL and add them to a K-State roster. We're all going to say Mahomes, or probably going to say Mahomes, and if you're not, that's fine. I'm going to say don't even say quarterback because, like, that's good.
Phillip Rivers.
Well, okay, it's fine. I'm going to say, okay, that's a good answer. No, I'm going to say, can't even
Derwin
say
James.
Oh, he'd be good. You can't say a quarterback. So any other NFL player and add it to this K-State roster, who you taking? Let's go back to fan. Any NFL player, non-quarterback, and you're adding it to K-State's roster.
I would go with I'm forgetting his name. The Rams defensive lineman.
Donald?
who's-
Oh,
Donald.
Donald, yeah.
I would take him. Just an impact guy on defense.
Great answer. Anybody, what you got?
Aaron Donald.
Yeah, yep.
That was my answer.
Kurtz, anybody other than quarterback or Aaron Donald you would add?
Aaron Donald's a great answer because I was trying to think. You want somebody that's going to have just such a high impact, and it's harder to do in football. And if it's not going to be the quarterback, you know, I mean, the only other thing I would think about is like, you know, can you give me like Todd Gurley?
Sure.
Because this team needs a running back so bad, and that would help out a lot.
I mean, if you're going, I would say Donald, but if you're going to go somewhere else, you'd have to start looking at running back
Khalil
for that
Mack.
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. Khalil
You
Mack.
know, Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson, Deechaz Newsome, Derek Watt.
Derek Watt.
any of
I
those.
get that all the way.
I mean,
Any of those
you
would be
could
great
you could throw out just after seeing him as Tyreek Hill and the speed.
Yeah.
he's got. That would be an impact guy in college.
special teams, you know. You
I mean,
Tyreek
no,
Hill.
absolutely.
Big
Absolutely.
12 alum.
He
It's
is.
true.
He
Kind of.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. Correct. Guys, this one's directed straight at me, so you guys can drink your waters or whatever you want to do. It says, Matt Hall, this is from Black Ema. I haven't heard a Matt Hall wrestling rant in a while. I want you, he wants me to do this, to get on your soapbox and tell how you feel about the state of the WWE or whatever your league is and tell me why I should watch. It's hard to tell you why you should watch, you know, because it's not awesome right now. But if there's a trump card, it's that this Sunday's the Royal Rumble. It is the greatest pro wrestling event of the calendar year. So get yourself the WWE Network. You get like a 7-day free trial. Like I'm selling this for Mr. McMahon right now. 7-day free trial. Watch the Rumble. Cancel it. You'll enjoy it. You know, there's some great guys in the WWE. It's a lot of great talent. Probably the most talented roster they've ever had. But man, the writing is just bad. So I can't tell you to watch it. But there will be another wrestling federation called All Elite Wrestling that maybe is worth keeping an eye on. You know, maybe it's Flanders. This sounds sketchy. It's owned by Tony Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars and his dad. Whatever. So let's move on. But watch the Rumble and hopefully enjoy it. Okay. KSU Fellas asks another version, but a little bit different, a little bit fun. Basically, build a non-K-State All Big 12 team. So, and I'm gonna word it. So his question says this: you have to trade each of our starters for any other player in the Big 12. Who would it be and why? And then he says in parentheses, more or less your non-K-State All Big 12 team. And I'm gonna make a little caveat to his wording here, so to help you guys decide how you want to answer it. I'm not asking you to tell me your all Big 12 team. I'm asking you to tell me the best team of 5 you can make in the Big 12. So I don't care if you think I deserve to be on the all Big 12 team, whatever. Make your best 5-man Big 12 team that's not consisting of K-State players. And we can work as a team if we want. You know, like we don't have to go around the table and do this. We all know we're going to put Culver on there, right?
Culver and Lawson.
Culver, Lawson, and
Yeah.
Shayok are probably all on. Is anybody against Shayok
No.
on their team?
I'm putting Alex Robinson.
Alex
on.
Robinson.
I would have gone out Robinson. Yeah, that
So
was
we
my next
probably
guy.
have 4 if we're saying Robinson, Culver, Shayok, and Lawson. I don't really argue with any of those. I don't think I do. So for our 5th, are we looking at somebody like I feel like we need a 4 or a
4 or 5
or
man.
a 5,
Let's
yeah.
see.
I mean, Flanders over there says Azubuike, which is a good answer, but he's hurt, so I'm going to eliminate him from this.
Same
I mean-
with Konate.
Yeah, but yeah, same thing. Like those would be good names. Yeah, let's say they gotta be healthy, so you can have Kanate or Azubuike. Well, I'll just say some names. Kwat Noi is 6'7". He could play the 4 first in that lineup a little bit. No,
Fans don't like him.
I love.
I mean, I like him.
love
I like him,
but you don't
but
think he
he's a
helps
3
us.
to me. He's a
So
3
what
to me.
about? I'm just gonna say more Brady Manick. Jackson Hayes. You could go J.D. Miller.
Michael Jacobson from Iowa State is a pretty good player.
Yep, that's true.
Issa Ahmad from West Virginia.
That's true.
pretty good player.
Anybody else got any names that we haven't thought of here? We agree on 4 pretty fast, but
Jackson Hayes from Texas.
yeah, I said Jackson Hayes.
That's my guy.
Yeah.
I would go Jackson Hayes.
Yeah,
He's pretty good.
Matt
He
mentioned
is.
Jackson Hayes the other day.
That guy, he grew like 9 inches.
And again,
Yeah.
you're not saying
In
he's one of the
2
best
years.
5 players in the league if you're putting you're just saying if
Is
you're
it-
building
I mean,
a roster.
If you're looking for a 5, he's
yeah.
So what position are we basically?
Probably a 5 or a 4.
Okay.
yeah.
Hayes.
Probably a 5, honestly. And Hayes is the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Right.
is.
Yeah, I think that's the I
So
think
our
that's the best answer.
our 5, we would go Robinson, Culver, Shayok, Lawson, Hayes. I'd be agreeing
with
on
that.
that. I like it. All right. Okay. Where would you want K-State's first round NCAA tournament game to be? Des Moines, Tulsa, or somewhere else? I don't know where all the sites are off the top
Isn't
of my
there
head.
Kansas City?
I don't know.
The Sweet 16 Elite 8 is in Kansas
Okay,
City.
the region.
So I'm going to look it up, and hopefully you guys just randomly talk a little bit about, NCAA tournament and, like, how much location matters. And in a second, I'm going to tell you where they all are. So chat it up.
Let's not go to Tulsa. We've already lost there.
See, I was
I would. I like Tulsa. I would go to Tulsa.
I thought the question initially was going to be like we can just take any place, any site.
I don't think it is.
I feel like that's more fun.
Well, I mean, you could answer it that way.
I like
if it would
Oklahoma
make
City
you
because that
happy.
was where K-State beat BYU to go to the Sweet 16, and Kansas lost to Northern Iowa on the same day.
Yeah.
I like Oklahoma City.
I mean,
Easy
Tulsa's
to
on
get
there
to.
if you're picking Oklahoma City. Hartford, Connecticut, Salt Lake, Utah, Des Moines, Iowa, Jacksonville,
Salt Lake.
Florida,
Get
Tulsa,
that all the way
Oklahoma,
the hell outta
Columbus,
here.
Ohio, Columbia, South Carolina, San Jose, California.
Columbus.
Actually, I would like to go to Columbus. That'd be fun. I've
Two
always wanted to
Columbus,
go there.
Ohio's?
Yeah.
Nationwide Arena is nice. Worth a
Columbia,
shot.
South Carolina wouldn't be that bad.
How do you feel about Jared Solinger? I love that guy.
It's kind of a
Man,
nice place.
bad.
I think
now.
Tulsa. I mean,
Well, of course.
I mean, if you're going close,
I say fan
of
now.
the
He was
two,
always bad.
I'd prefer Tulsa
over Des Moines. So would I.
Yeah.
So would I. You guys want to go to home of the Buckeyes? That's fine. Whatever. It's a good answer you guys gave.
My parents will cook us a meal.
That's home of and Buckeyes.
What?
I was making it the Ohio State University joke.
Oh, yeah, they're great. B Shown 87. I think this is for fans specifically. Actually, I know it is. So, Kurtz and DY, don't even act like your knowledge is required on this question. All right, this is for fan. Fan, you've done some excellent posts as of late about Courtney Messingham, who I'll give you guys a little spoiler, sat in this very seat with Joe Klanderman on Saturday night eating dinner. We stared at him like a couple of creepers. Flander doesn't have a microphone, so that's why it's not working for us. He had some excellent points about Messingham's offense. Flipped a script on you. I don't know if you're prepared for this. What do you know about Hazleton's defense?
Well, I only know the numbers. I didn't get a chance to watch a bunch of film like I did with Messingham's offense. And there's another question later on that I did prepare for of, I think Professor Plum asked it. Yeah.
So we'll come back. Let's be honest, unless you guys can tell me differently. Like I know, and I know Kurtz can too. I know we can all rattle off Hazleton's stats at Wyoming and that kind of stuff. I can too. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've watched Wyoming's defense schematically to tell you what he does. Have any of you guys watched it and can break down what he does?
I mean,
Anybody?
I think the question later on, I'll address some of it
Perfect.
based on the metrics. So we'll just wait.
We'll get to that. This is for me and Flando, and I don't want to answer it. I'm embarrassed. The Nooch Baloney, I think is what this one says. He asks if we watched Eddie Murphy, Raw, or Delirious yet. I have not watched either. Still, Flanders, have you watched those two Eddie Murphy? Nope, shake your head. Okay, we're not. But see, the thing is, we respect enough not to ignore your question. I mean, but we haven't seen it. So this is fun. DY, I don't think I can ask you this because, you do a great job covering K-State, but you're not like a K-State diehard fan. So this may not work for you. So I'm going to ask this to Fan and Kurtz. Kurtz second, so you can text. Fan, you're up first. K-State will go undefeated and win the national title if you can recite word for word any song. I'm not going to make you sing it. He wants you to sing it.
You don't want me to
but
sing
what song that if you get it right, let's say it's in front of a crowd too, right? You have to do it at the national championship game.
Okay.
And if you
Oh,
can
I thought I
recite-
was literally supposed to start singing a song. I was literally
You're
about
supposed to.
I was about
Correct.
to do All Star by Smash Mouth.
Go ahead.
Like, somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Is it she? She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead.
Well, the days start
Coming and they don't stop coming back to the something, and I hit the ground
lost.
running.
Nope, championship.
Didn't make
Gone.
sense not to. Oh.
I would do like I'm a little teapot. Does that count? Like that's like 8 words in it, right? I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here's my handle. Here is my spout. Tip
Well, I
me
mean-
over and hear me shout.
I don't.
I think I got it wrong.
I'm not.
No, I got it. Tequila. That
That would probably be smart.
I mean, I think the obvious choice here is we got to go back to standing up for the champions, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, don't we have to repeat that?
What if you did the national anthem? Like you should know that, right? No, Flanders shook his head. All right, Flanders has no. He probably,
wanted no
he
part of
probably
that.
couldn't start it. Like if he had a mic right now, you probably couldn't give me the first like 3 words if I gave it to him, which I think is totally fine. I'm not making fun of you. I just realized, guys, Flanders has no mic, and we haven't made fun of him like this whole show. We could be making fun of him this entire time, and there's.
I mean, he's under the weather, man. I don't want to make fun of him.
I don't care.
Shut it down.
Okay, guys, Fab 5-4. Number 1, what record would it take for K-State to win the Big 12? We're going to go Fan, Kurtz, DY. Fan, Kurtz, DY. What record does K-State need to have to win the Big 12?
I think if you're talking I think 13-5 might do it. I think if you're talking outright, I think 14-4.
Agreed.
Nobody.
I would have said 14-4. That's what it took in 12-13. So, and that was even for Co.
That's a good answer. I got nothing else. All right. We've already hit on Barry Brown, but I'll ask it again because it's worded a little bit differently. Does Barry Brown do enough this season, individually and as a team, in your opinion? So, okay, let me start over. We're not asking you what Barry needs to do to get in the jersey, to get in the rafters. We've all kind of talked about it maybe before Kurtz got here. I'm not asking you what you think he needs to do. I'm asking simply, will he do enough this year as an individual and on a team to get real consideration to have his jersey hung at some point?
I think he's got a real shot. I think if you were picking all Big 12 right now at the 40% mark, Barry would be first team.
Yep.
And he would be in the running for honorable mention All-American, which I've said before I think is the minimum. I think you got to at least be an honorable mention All-American to be up there. So I think he's got a real shot, and he's in the running, and it's a serious discussion.
Same question to you guys, more or less, and I think it's a fun discussion still. Will he do enough to someday have his jersey retired at K-State?
Yes.
Derek Young, strong,
emphatic. Yes.
I
Tell
like
me
it.
why.
I like it.
I like it.
I think that they have a real chance at least sharing the Big 12 championship. They have a real chance of making a deep tournament run because they're turning into the team that did this last year, except this team has Dean Wade playing at a high level again.
Confident hot take. Derek Young's
And then
my favorite.
Barry Brown I think should be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, and I don't think anything's going to happen between now and the end of the season for me to come off of that stance. I think he's going to be all Big 12 first team. And Dedrick Lawson probably gets Conference Player of the Year, but between now and then, there's room for Barry Brown to catch him on that too.
Yeah. That's
The
a good
only
answer.
thing I was going to say, in addition to
I'm a little bit floored. It's a
to
good
what
answer.
fans say, yeah, I know. I'm. This is going to be soft compared to what DY just had, but I mean, I would just say I think there are things he could do outside of being an honorable mention All-American, namely just a deep tournament run. If they make another Elite Eight or a Final Four, I think that's probably going to be an automatic kicker just to get Dean and Barry up in the rafters no matter what else takes place. So he could conceivably get to the point where he's not quite at that honorable mention All-American level, but still get in the rafters if they make a tournament run.
Dang good answers, I tell you what. The next one I feel like is directed at me because it's about wrestling again. But if anybody has an opinion, I want you to chime in. I got 2 Royal Rumble questions. First of all, Flanders and DY, we're getting back on time for the Rumble. I don't know what it's going to take for us to get back on time from College Station on Saturday for the Royal Rumble, but it's going to happen. We're not missing the Royal Rumble. Like 7? I think it starts at 7. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. So Fab54 asks, do we see the Demon on Sunday versus Brock Lesnar? Let me explain real quick what that means to non-wrestling fans. Brock Lesnar is defending the Universal title against Finn Balor. who occasionally, about once or twice a year, will put on like full body paint and come out as the Demon Finn Balor, and it's pretty cool. And I do think we'll see the Demon against Brock Lesnar. And I'll give you a step further. I think he'll beat Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. It'll be shocking to wrestling nerds. Like, that would be a shocking result.
Mitch disagreed with that when you said that.
No, he likes Lesnar. And Lesnar's a smart pick. Like, if you're going by odds, me picking Balor to beat Lesnar would have been like me picking Baylor to win in Lawrence. You know, like, no one. It could happen, but probably not. Then he asked if there are any last-minute favorites to win the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches. I asked Mitch the same question on your show, and I would steal his answer. It's going to be Seth Rollins for the men. It's going to be Becky Lynch for the women.
Why is it going to be Seth Rollins?
He's pretty good. He's the guy they're pushing to be, I think, the next. He's good, but I would pick other guys. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I like Seth Rollins is better than
Roman Reigns?
Yeah, Roman Reigns. I like him better than that, but I know nothing about wrestling, by the way. So
I thought you were going to get into it there.
Don't take my opinion for like anything, but I don't know. Seth Rollins, he's okay, but he's just kind of to me, you know. I don't think there's enough.
No, there's
not enough Ric Flair there.
Correct. He does lack that like aura or that it factor. Like, he's a great wrestler, but like when Flair, you're like, oh, who's that guy? He looks like a champion.
Yeah.
Rollins, you don't think that. Are you familiar with who the Von Erichs are? Like, at your age, like Kerry Von Erich, Disney.
A little bit.
I'm just curious.
A little bit. I never watched a lot of wrestling.
They were on way back. Remember when ESPN had wrestling on? Remember at all?
I do.
They wrestled on that. Like at 4 o'clock, ESPN had pro wrestling on back in the day. So good stuff. So now I think some people might prefer this question to the Royal Rumble talk. I don't know. I'm not sure what you're listening to. It is the KSO Show, presented by Tallgrass Tap House. We have a couple other sponsors, Bourbon and Baker. We tried to go there last Saturday night, and they were so busy we decided just to come here. Then we saw the coaches here. Or you go to Harry's, which they may have been there too. But those are our other sponsors. I'll go back to Fan for this and then see if Kurtz and DY want to add something. How does Hazelton's defense, you look at what he's coming from Wyoming and his background combined with Chris Kleiman, of course. How does it transfer or translate to the Big 12?
I mean, I think it'll be a good fit. It'll be more aggressive, so I'm not sure if he has all the players yet, especially in the front seven, to do what he's going to want to do. Same with Kleiman. But I think long-term it's going to be a really good defense. How good is hard to say because the Big 12 is an offensive league, and there's so many good offenses still in this league, offensive players. So as long as he can keep us – if he can get us to a top 40 type defense, top 30 type defense, it doesn't have to be top 10, but we can be a really good team and have chances to compete for Big 12 titles with that kind of defense here.
Is there anything you guys would add, or you look at, you say, man, I'm worried about this, or I'm excited about this, or did Fan just knock it out of the park?
Well, I mean, Fan did a really good job. The only thing I would add is that he's been at USC and he's been a defensive coordinator at Nevada, which I perceive as being more wide open leagues offensively, so it's not too far from what he would be facing in the Big 12. So I don't think there would be any issue as far as like a learning curve. There's going to be some, but not a huge learning curve for the Big 12 and how that would translate. So yeah, I don't think there would really be any issue as far as I'm concerned.
Need pass rushers. I don't know if they have any specialty pass rushers on this team. I think Wyatt Hubert will be. He was already a pretty good one. Will be a better one now. But I think if you're looking for one linchpin, at least of Kleiman's defenses and kind of what Hazelton is kind of taken with him is, and you probably can say this about any defensive coordinator, they're going to go as well as they rush the quarterback.
All good answers. I just realized I messed up a little bit. Shocking. We'll figure it out in a second. Your guys' answers were good. We're all in good shape. Nobody freak out. Flanders, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. This is from Black Ema. I actually thought about this as you guys were talking, and I want us all to answer because I think it's a funny answer. He asked, what's your average screen time in a day? From Twitter, computer, TV, it has to be pretty GD high. I'm sure GD means gosh darn. Thanks for your sacrifice to give us great content. So, I mean, you think about it, right? Like screen time in a day, holy cow. The time I'm not on the screen would be like the little bit of time I spend exercising occasionally. If I take a shower, that's about it. And when I sleep, so if I sleep 8 hours, if I shower and work out for a total of an hour, that's 9 hours minus 24. I'm on the screen the rest of the time. So, 16, 15 hours a day.
Mine's an unhealthy amount. It's, shower, driving, But even when I have lunch, my computer's open, so
Right.
it's bad.
But it's not all work. Again, like this is that thing too, where like this is not what we're saying. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Like it's not very labor intensive. But I mean, if you're asking how much I'm on the screen, it's all 15, 16 hours a day.
I'm probably not quite as much as you two, but I'm pretty close. I mean, because I'm always trying to think about like what I can do social media wise, and even if it's not what I can do work wise to provide content on social media, it's like, I mean, that's how I get my news, right? You know,
Right.
And so I am always on that phone. It gives me that like screen time report, but I can't remember what the last one was. Let's see.
Yeah, it's a lot for me too. I mean, and I do other things. This isn't my full-time job, obviously, so it overlaps a little bit. I'll just say that, and I just
It
I mean,
overlaps a little bit. That's funny.
but it's like Kurt says. I mean, it's how you interact with people a lot too. It's how you get news. It's how you. I mean, there's so many things you're doing on a screen. But obviously, I do a lot of stats and all that kind of stuff in my free time, so it keeps me busy. I'll just say that.
You're a busy man. Tell you what, I respect you for it. This is the Professor Plum post we were waiting for, and I got excited. But he asked similar questions. But for Fan, it looked like Mike McGurl against Tech held his own with defensive rotations. It looked like the other guys on the floor trusted him. How do you think his defensive numbers compare to, say, a sophomore Barry Brown? Is he the stopper next year?
I will say he is. I think he is going to be the stopper next year. I think he's the best defensive guard on the team of the underclassmen, and I think
Do you
he'll
think
be
he's a better I mean, I'm not trying to argue. I'm just curious because you said guard, and you did a good
Yeah.
job of actually closing that off. Is he a better defender than X, do you think, or is it close?
It's close. It's different. He's a little smaller. Guards a little bit different positions. I mean, X isn't guarding ones and twos as much, and he's not guarding threes and fours like X is. So it's a little different. As far as comparing him to Barry, it's tough because Barry was playing 30-plus minutes as a sophomore. Mike's playing 15. His steal rate's very similar. His rebounding rate is very similar. Assist to turnover is very similar. He's really similar in all his stats right now. His three-point rate percentage is down this year, but it's up in Big 12 play. He's actually leading the team in Big 12 play. So I think he's got a chance to be a really good player. It's hard to say how it translates to going from 15 to 30 minutes a game, which is what we're going to find out. But I do think he is the next in line to be the defensive dude for K-State like Barry has been the last 3 years, really, 4 years almost.
I'm going to ask this next Professor Plum. I was trying to think of what's a P word that means question? Is there one?
I don't know.
Ponder, proposition.
Proposition?
Be close. I want to use 3 Ps. Professor Plum, proposition. To Derek, don't think this is funny. I thought it was hilarious. To Derek Young, do you have an antidote for Mr. Plum for this persistent feeling he has in his gut that every 2019 recruit with other P5 offers will be headed somewhere other than Manhattan next season? He means Jefferson, Reed, Kelly, Potter. I think I've contracted a case of, quote, leftover phobia from years of finishing our classes with Levi Archer types that we had to wrestle away from Pitt State. Can you give Professor Plum an antidote for the way he's feeling about these last few kids in this class, DY? Help him out. He came to you for help.
I think Kansas State will get half of those, so that should solve it. I do think that it's going to be tough with Jefferson and Kelly, especially since they're visiting other places this upcoming weekend. But I think that they're, poised to land both Gavin Potter and Kenyon Reed. And they haven't even offered Kenyon Reed, actually. Not yet, anyway. They will.
I'm going to come back to Fan for this next question, and then Kurtz will come up after that. So be prepared after Fan for a different question, so it won't really help you to listen. You talked some. Again, I messed this up. My segue, transition, all of it was D- level at best. But you talked about some of the advanced metrics. Similar question from Professor Plum. What metrics that you see from Wyoming's defense under Hazleton suggest that the greatest improvement in results for this K-State defense? So what were they good at that you could see them bringing to K-State and making a difference?
This was a good question I did do some research on. One thing that I noticed, the S&P has a stat called havoc rate, which basically
Sounds awesome.
Which basically deals with tackles for loss, sacks, passes deflected. And last year, K-State's havoc rate was ranked 113 in the country.
That makes sense.
And our front seven havoc rate was 111. At Wyoming, Hazleton's defense has averaged 45 havoc rate, and their front seven havoc rate was in the top 30 both years. So
I've never heard the stat before, and I love it.
It's a very good stat. I like it a lot. Part of that is players. I mean, we know they had an NFL defensive lineman for a year and a half, so I mean that's part of it. But also, I think part of it is design, and so that was one that really stuck out, going from 111 to we're probably not going to be top 30 necessarily next year, but if we can get top 50, that makes a big difference. Another one is called available yards, which is basically if you take the percentage of yards a team gains based on what's available. So if they have an 80-yard drive, Last year, K-State ranked 102 in that stat. Both years at Wyoming, Hazleton's defenses were number 18 in the country. So that's definitely a stat that shows they stop drives early in drives and don't let people drive the field on them. Also, success rate, which is a stat I really like a lot, and drive success, kind of two similar stats. K-State was 117 in success rate last year, and Hazleton's defenses were in the mid-40s. So those are ones that really stuck out to me as I looked at the numbers as things that could be. Last year they weren't as good at Wyoming because they were only 88 in forced turnovers. Turnover rate, which is I think a better stat because it takes into account how many plays you're on the field. They were number one in the country his first year at Wyoming. So, but we were a decent turnover rate team last year. We ranked 34. So those are the ones that stood out to me. Especially that havoc rate stat was like, this one is hopefully one we make a difference in.
To more of a layman's mind like my own here and that kind of stuff, it all adds up, makes sense though, right? First of all, havoc rate sounds awesome. It's like slugging percentage in baseball. Like, it just sounds like something you want to be good at, right? But then it all makes sense. I mean, it suggests, havoc rate, if you're talking cliche announcer terms, getting guys behind the chains. They're probably doing that by getting tackles for lost, sacks, whatever it is. If you get guys behind the chains, it's harder, to pick up first downs and score. So it all makes sense. And the one thing, too, without putting the cart before the horse, because we'll wait and see, they'll play to their personnel. But that doesn't sound bend but don't break. If a team is high in havoc rate, because I'm going to use it I'm going to act like I know about that stat so well now. Like if a team is high in that, it would make sense that they're not as bend but don't break. So totally different topic. Now to John Kurtz. This is from D. Korth, KSU. Just in your opinion, theory, how different would this team be if K-State had Kerwin Roach instead of Barry Brown the last 4 years?
Man, I saw that question.
Yeah,
that was a really interesting
right?
one. That was a really interesting one. It's hard for me because Barry is just such a perfect fit for what they wanted to do. Now, I think the question is that because Barry Brown fit what they wanted to do, or is it because they evolved around what Barry Brown was? And I think that was some of what Matt and I were getting at with some of the line of questioning we had for Bruce Weber today. Like, did he set out to recruit this team that was a juggernaut defensively, or did it just sort of happen?
That's a good question, by the way. Thought you had.
Thank you. You had a good follow-up because I was going to try and ask the same thing too about moving forward. But a couple of mentions cutting it up, as Stu Gatz would say. I don't know. I mean, I guess the answer is I don't know. I don't know how much that would have changed the evolution of the team. I'm not sure that I have a great answer for you, but I think it's a fascinating question to ponder, and I'd honestly be curious to defer that to Fan as to how much that changes, because I'm not as familiar. Fan would know Kerwin Roach's total skill set better as to how that would really shape the outlook of this team. But I mean, the thing is, like, as good as Dean Wade is, like, Barry Brown's the heartbeat of this team, and he's the one that twice, when they've had bad things happening, last year the Cam injury, this year the 0-2 start, that has really willed the team back. He had the speech at halftime of the West Virginia game this year. He had the team meeting, players-only meeting last year when Cam's injury happened. He really is the guy that drives everything. So does Kerwin Roach have the type of personality that could have done that same sort of thing at K-State? I mean, I just don't know.
Yeah, I would agree. It's tough because if you look at measurables, Roach is over his career a more efficient player. He's a better shooter from three. He's a better shooter from two. And so he's maybe a little bit better skilled as an offensive player. But intangibly, you look at that Texas team, and sure, it comes from Shaka.
Right.
But it also has to come from players, and he's definitely the lead guard on that team. And you look at how inconsistent that team has been throughout his career, and it's hard for me to say he's a better player than Barry Brown. Now, some of that's intangibles, which are hard to measure, but I kind of agree with Kurtz that Barry's shown some of those things where he led this team and lifted them up above maybe what they really were at the time, and you don't see Kerwin Roach do that at Texas. And so that would be my issue with comparing those two players.
I think they both nailed it, because I thought what Kurt said was what I would have got into was some level of, and I think this is who Barry is, so I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but was Barry always this guy, or did the culture help make him that?
No, it's a good point.
Right.
Too, yeah.
Could Kerwin Roach have been different if he was in that culture for 4 years? Because, like Fan said, I think Roach is a naturally better offensive player. And I think from a pure running, jumping perspective, he's a better athlete, too.
Mm-hmm.
But all that said, it's hard for me to project and just assume that he would be the kind of leader Barry Brown. And Barry Brown's good at those things. He's made himself into a good offensive player. He's a good athlete. So I think we'll have to assume probably better with Barry. But I think it's a great question.
It is. Really good question.
The next question by Aggieville legend, I think got answered by Scott Wildcat, and I think he's right. I don't think anybody knows the answer. The question was, what do you think the student section capacity is? Scott Wildcat said he thinks it was 4,500. That would make sense, right? If that place holds 12,500, they take about a third of it. So
they cut it back, didn't they? Because they've been really. I remember this discussion from when I was a student. They're really generous with the seats there, because a lot of times the seats are going to be behind the basket. They're not going to be, those primetime seats right there that have good sight lines and everything. And I think for a little while there during the early Bruce era, maybe the students weren't showing up quite as much, and I thought they cut back on some of the student seating because of that, and some of it was because, like, hey, we're giving you guys, the students, a really good deal already with the student seating here. Like Kansas, the student sections at Allen Fieldhouse are behind the basket.
K-State's the only student section. I mean, we've been around a little bit now.
Yeah,
that's not stuffed into like I say end zone, but stuff into a baseline. I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember going to Nebraska football games, and they were stuck
like
in the corner,
northeast
like
corner,
way
right?
up in, in
right, because I mean,
we've always had great student seats. At
students
K-State.
aren't going to pay the money. If they're going to sell those type of seats, they want to get the money out of them. Students aren't going to be the ones to pay the money.
That's well said. DY Arn Anderson rules. You ready for you want a serious question?
You throw me anything.
Serious question. You think Scotty Hazelton will wear a hard hat on game days?
You should, right?
That's the right answer. Ding, ding, ding. There's a picture for you. Flanders got pulled up. Wow.
That's good.
The right answer.
Yeah.
Let's give you a couple more serious
like
ones. These are both for DY because I've been kind of dodging him on purpose. This is Topeka Cat. I think this is the first time Topeka Cat. I think it's the first time I've seen their name asking a question on the Q&A. So that's exciting if I'm right. If you have before and I missed it, I really am sorry. You think football season ticket sales will go up, down, or be about the same next year? I know you're guessing, but you think they go up, down, about the same?
I think it's about the same, at least at the beginning, because I think that people were excited about maybe something different and wanted to buy, and then I think we saw kind of the backlash immediately once this hire kind of took place, and I think a lot of people had hesitation in terms of seat buying at that point. And now I think they're starting to come back around. So I think it all kind of evens itself out to where it's probably not much change one way or another.
Another one for DY. You've been around the league a lot the last 2 years. Even last year, you're hitting the road a bunch.
Yeah.
You've probably been everywhere. We can all help each other out with this because I think as a group we probably have.
Yeah.
In general, where do you put K-State and facilities in the conference? I know that's such a hard question because what matters most to you? But in general, facilities, where would you throw K-State in the Big 12?
Man, from stories, I would have them above Texas Tech and West Virginia, right?
I would, for my trips to those places, yes.
And they're obviously, at least football, ahead of KU.
And really even
basketball
too. I mean, from a purely
aesthetic.
Exactly. That's where what does facilities mean turn into a question. But even in basketball, probably so. Yeah. Iowa
State's are better than people realize. Their stadium is kind of below.
It's
like three different stadiums.
Yeah, Jack Trice Stadium.
All John Kurtz, everybody.
Their press box is just.
And Hilton, I'll say it on this. Hilton smells like pee. Like, I think it was an impressive venue. It was loud. It was big in there, but it smells a little bit like you've been to the Kansas Coliseum, I'm sure, in your life. Yeah. I felt like I was in the Kansas Coliseum watching a basketball game.
Dude, I love the Kansas.
I kind of love the Kansas Coliseum too. We've ruined this for you though, but we're talking through it.
Yeah.
We've accepted basically better than Tech, better than West Virginia, probably better than Kansas, Probably better than I would say better than Iowa State.
It's better than Iowa State when you take into account their actual stadiums. Their practice stuff is not bad, but yeah, taking everything better than Iowa State. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are probably both better than K-State.
See, that's where I would stop and talk about it, and not to disagree, or not even disagree, but to bring up what are we talking about? Because Okie State, I'd be with you. I can't argue K-State has better facilities. Man, Oklahoma's honestly are terrible. I mean, when I say terrible, I mean the football stadium itself, from like press box amenities, stadium perspective, is bad. It's a huge stadium, but bad. And then Lloyd Noble's the worst I've seen. So but again, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying this is part of the discussion. Like, but what about all the other stuff they have?
I think more of the other stuff, because when you see some of the pictures from their football recruits and what they get to see, and kind of the other facilities maybe behind the scenes, those seemed like probably the best in the league, second to Texas, or right on par with Texas. And obviously that'd be the next one. I would have Texas ahead of K-State too, but they, that's no surprise, obviously. No. K-State and Baylor's probably. I like K-State Stadium a lot better than Baylor's, especially when we're talking about football.
But
basketball,
if you're just,
But why we talked about this off the air. Waco's not that good of a town either.
I'm with you. I mean, so we've talked about. I think TCU's are pretty good.
They have a really nice campus, and that makes everything kind of look better too.
The basketball floor is terrible.
Well, have you seen it in person? Because I haven't. I want.
No,
I will this
on
year.
TV.
On TV, I can't
impressed.
stand it. I'm with you. I'm definitely a terrible vote for that. Who we forgot? What we talked about every in the Big 12 except for I think that's everybody.
No, that's everyone. Yeah. So
we talked briefly about.
So I would definitely have Texas, Oklahoma State.
Probably Oklahoma.
Probably Oklahoma. And I think I would have K-State a hair ahead of TCU. So.
Yeah, so 4th, 5th, that's where I'd put them too. Yeah. And that's good. I mean, for K-State, if you could sit here and say that genuinely they're the 4th or 5th best team in the league, facilities-wise, that's pretty good. But again, it's a fascinating conversation because what are we talking? What specifically are we talking about? Because if it's just stadiums, it might go up a little bit.
Yeah.
If it's including everything else, you're definitely behind, the Oklahomas and the Texases and those kind of things.
Yeah, and if we're take it a step further, and if we also just do college towns, Manhattan probably fares very, very well. When you hear how Manhattan's the top college town, it's not like a fib or a lie. We've been to some of these. You don't want to spend a ton of time in Morgantown, I'll put it that way.
No, dude.
I kind of like Morgantown.
Oh. Well, hey, John Kurtz hates Jack Trice loves more, but I'm with you in the Jack Trice hate. Like I said, when I walked into that place, I've been there for a long time. This past year, I've been in there again, and I was like, it's 3 stadiums all just combined into one. They look all super different. Anyway, we've been on this for
and
a
you
while.
Can get into the stadium very easy. They don't
you just walk on in.
They don't check your bags.
We had a couple stories this year. Iowa State and Baylor. I'll tell you guys a secret. I'm going to whisper to the listeners. So,
especially the Baylor one.
If you want to go to Iowa State or Baylor, just walk in. That's all you have to. They're not going to ask for anything. Just go on in, man.
They almost let us into Baylor without even going through a metal detector.
At Baylor, they're just going to sign you up for a parking pass too. They're just going to write one down and give it to you. It's that simple. I want to praise B. Shown. It's not a question, but it's a smart comment he made here. How genius was he to post his questions separately to get more likes from me? It worked. I liked every one of them, so really appreciate that. I use likes. You guys notice I like everything on group, I like everything on Twitter. To me, likes are like, I read this. That's kind of how I use them. And maybe that's annoying to some people.
Well, that makes me feel worse about myself because I thought you were just liking all my stuff because it was awesome.
I don't like everything, but I know I'm an over-liker, and I know I get heat for that, and rightfully so. But it is to tell you, hey, I read that. That's
You're definitely an over-liker. So if I do write something to you and you don't like it, I start to get concerned.
That's true.
Like I probably pissed you off.
Oh, I've got to like it.
Yeah.
To like it.
Yeah.
Now I do. Sometimes I do think, if I like this, what will people think that I liked it? So that comes into play too.
I deal with that more so because of our spot and all this. Yeah. So I'm like, well, that's probably not good business for me to like.
You have those posts. You guys have all been there. You people listening on the board, people talking on this podcast, where you're reading it and you're like, yeah, and then you get to the second paragraph,
and then there's something where I'm like,
more or less like the most offensive thing that could be said.
Yeah.
You're like, paragraph 1 said, I think Matt Hall's a great person. Paragraph 2 said, I hate everyone else.
Right.
And I'm like, do I like this? Because I appreciate what he said about me. Yeah. But the rest of it, if I'm associated with that, I'm the bad guy.
No, it's hard. It happens on Twitter too, where I'm like, look, I want to like your thing. Like somebody today, when I when I went on in Kansas City was like, oh man, thank you, you're so good at that, blah blah blah. I
saw that
the
tweet.
rest of Kansas City radio like sucks, and I was like, well, I can't like that now. Like,
I can't even
you know,
retweet it. You know, like
I think you guys are
well, I'm sure you think that.
Plano says we're overthinking it.
Plano says we're overthinking
Yeah,
it.
probably true.
It's funny what you mentioned. I'll tell a fast Target story. We had group messages like we do in KSO at Target, and we had a gal. Her name was Caitlin Ward. Still is Caitlin Ward. 'Cause she's still alive.
Wow, last name. Huh?
She well, it's out there. Look her up. She's one of the okay. I'll
getting
back up a
based on
second.
Target.
Sorry, Kate. They're gonna look you up though. Do you ever have that friend where you have to say their whole name though? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, most people call me Matt Hall. I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Yeah.
Like I rarely even called Matt or Hall. Hall sometimes is usually Matt Hall.
too many Matts.
And she's one of those people who is like a whole name thing. Point is, she liked everything on GroupMe. Everything. Didn't matter what. She was hitting that heart and liking it. And one time, one person made fun of her for it. And it wasn't me. And then someone said what Derek said, though. She's like, well, you know what that means if I don't like your post then. That was like her anti-like, So anyway, let's move on. Snyder Cats for life. I'm going to ask these. Let's go to Fan, the first one. And then we'll open it up maybe to Kurtz for the second one. What kind of offensive strategies or sets do you notice that you think consistently work for K-State to get shooters open?
Well, the biggest one I've noticed lately is we're doing a down screen for Cam. Cam's somewhere at the bottom at the block, and he's coming up off a down screen toward the top of the key, and he's been getting lots of shots off of that set. We're also running him and X both on stagger cross screens from one wing to the other across the court or to the corner, which has been a good look for us. It's not necessarily for a shot, but we've been running Barry a lot on what I call an Iverson cut, which is basically from a wing across the top, across the elbow, sometimes with two screens, sometimes with just one screen, to the other wing, and getting him the ball with some space, letting him create off that. So those are some I've noticed lately. I really like the down screen for Cam and the stagger screens for Cam and X to get them shots, and I think those are the best to get shooter shots, and Cam's been knocking a lot of those down. So that's been a nice look for us lately.
I just thought of this off of what you're saying and off the question. I'll just tell you guys an exciting note. When I was taking a nap today, in my head, I thought of a set that I would run for K-State to beat KU if they play them this year. I'll share it with you.
Why is it
with you
only
later.
Kansas specific?
Because I'll tell you why. I'm glad you asked. Because the last two times K-State's played, I think Fan already knows, they've ran the same set two times in a row, trying to beat KU and Allen. So I would have a set I would run that would look like that, but it would be slightly different. I'm not going to tell it on here on the radio because I'm sure Self's listening and put it out there. But I have a set drawn in my head for how I tell you guys after the show, and you'll be like, that seems very simple. And I'll say, yeah, it was.
I mean, this is different.
Yeah.
But I do like sometimes when Chris reveals a little bit more.
Right.
When he makes a comment, and one of the things he said was, at the Iowa State game, Barry didn't walk the ball at the court.
Right.
Like he did against KU last year.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, so that's
did.
so that was,
The stuff that
after the
bothers them that
game,
they
they didn't
don't-
really say anything like that. But
Right.
now, looking back, they say, hey, Barry, you should have ran the ball up the court and not walked up the court. So
Exactly.
I kind of like it when he does that. And it's often indirect like that, but it's pretty cool.
And it speaks to the point that he's made, and I think it was talked about on the game on your show, maybe it was Power Cat Game Day, but that the idea that Bruce Weber says things on purpose in post game, and he does, because now, like
Yes.
you said, what Lowry just exposed, everybody, like everyone sitting at this table and everyone listening, was mad at Barry for not pushing it faster. But you didn't hear that in the post game because he's not going to walk in there. And say, well, it was because Barry Brown took 37 seconds to bring it up the floor. But then you get a year out from it, and Lowry will kind of drop in, like, well, yeah, we didn't take 8 years for Barry to bring it up the floor. Anyway, so I'm going to give you guys the tougher question, or maybe it's easier, depending on how you look at it. What strategies don't work? What really bogs down the offense? And, maybe it is what the fans call out generally about, some of the stereotypical stuff. Maybe it's something different. Derek or Kurtz, throw out thoughts. So it's something that you feel like bogs down K-State's offense.
Can I just two type of shots that kind of seem to bother me, or because they might not even be problems, but at least it's something I've picked up on the last 3 or 4 games. Obviously, they've won them all, so why are we bickering? I don't know.
No, we got to. Question got asked.
But it seems like Barry Brown, to me, and I don't have numbers back it up. Maybe Fan will. That he is a better shooter off the bounce than he is off a catch and shoot. That especially to me seems more
Took an
palpable.
early catch and shoot
last
corner
weekend.
3 last night, or that he missed, and
And he doesn't just miss those; he usually misses them by quite a bit too.
When K-State misses a 3, sometimes they just miss
Yeah.
that thing. You know,
When he hit like a step back 3.
He had a step back
the
off
other
the
night
bounce.
too.
Off the glass.
Off
Yeah.
the bounce, and then he went off the glass.
He did.
And then for Cam Stokes, it seems like a little bit of the opposite. Like if he's
Yeah.
off the bounce, maybe not as good of a shooter, especially one that comes to mind is I think he got a punt, got it up near a pump fake and took a dribble. It was a kind of a mid-range shot the other night, the last game, but he missed that thing and it was probably within 9 feet. But if he gets if he's dribbling, and just chucks up a 3, it doesn't seem like it goes in all that much. But he catches that thing if it's off a crisp pass, which is another. Bugaboo about me. I don't think it's a great passing team, but if he gets a good pass, he's going to usually hit it off the catch and shoot.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think like a coach, like Fan does. I don't have that.
Well, you're
kind
not
of
a coach,
mind.
are you?
Right. So that's Bill Snyder clearly established that earlier this year. So everybody understands that.
We
But,
all know.
I mean, the one thing I would say, it just seems like when they get bogged down on offense, it's when Barry Brown is just standing at the top dribbling too much. If he's going to pass up the first action or two that happens, it doesn't like what he sees there. Like sometimes they can be too patient. I get that they want to slow down the game and be low possession, but sometimes they can get caught being too much on the stagnant end of that, and I think it usually results in just watching Barry standing around and dribble in the crowd. If it's at home, starts to get pretty antsy.
They do. You're the
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one to me is we're not as good. I don't think we're as effective on ball screens this year, as far as either getting pick and pops or getting to the lane. I think they're sagging off shooters in other spots on the floor, so that's the biggest set that I would say.
Does it have anything in your estimation to do with being supposed to stay at home with screens better? Does that have anything to do with it, or just wait to
Yeah,
be
I
played?
mean, part of it's. I don't think Mac is a bad screener. I mean, obviously he seems to get one moving screen foul call a game.
I got to interrupt
So-
because I said to Lowry like 2 seconds into our breakfast this morning, I said, hey, man, can you tell Mac he doesn't have to get a moving screen within the first 2 minutes of every game? And he's like, you think we don't tell him that? I was like, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. I was just
Now,
giving him a
I
hard
will
time.
say,
Yeah.
DY had an astute observation that I'll
Doubt
back
it.
up with some numbers. Cam shoots 57% of his shots are threes, and 94% of his makes are assisted from 3.
So catch some
Barry
threes, huh?
Barry only shoots 28% of his shots from 3, but he's by far the lowest, and only 73% of his makes from 3 are assisted. So that was a very good observation that Cam is much better a catch and shoot kind
At
of kid.
everything.
And Barry is an off the bounce player as far as shooting the ball. So that especially from 3, but it also comes from 2s as well in both their numbers. So that pretty good job by DY pointing that out.
Pretty good job, I would say. Pretty good. Let's put DY on the spot again. And from Blue Jay Cat, let's see how you do on this one. Is the buzz in Veneer real, imaginary, or is it just new? So the buzz there, is it real, imaginary, or is it just the honeymoon phase?
I think some of it has to be the honeymoon phase. I think we'd be kind of lying to ourselves if that didn't play a factor. But I think it's a good enough staff that there's a little bit of a shock factor too, because at least when it comes from the recruiting perspective, which is I think what the question's probably deriving from, because I think that some of the recruits that have gotten recruited by both staffs, they see a little bit different energy, aggression level, pursuit level from this one compared to the last one. It's not a disrespect thing, not a knock thing.
Sure.
It's just a factual thing. I think one recruits a little bit differently and is more receptive by recruits.
That's a really good answer. So we're going to step forward. We're getting pretty close, guys. If you've been listening to this for 2 hours or answering questions for 2 hours, we are close. I really do appreciate the participation and the questions, the time you guys and gals spent writing these to us. Why is it funny to why is it hard to pronounce screen names? They're just words like everything else. You look at them like, what is that? I mean, catalytic, that would be the next one? Yeah. So okay, easy enough. I actually like the whole post. I will read it. Why not? I went to watch one of our basketball signees play the other night. He doesn't say the name. My general assessment was a tremendous amount of athletic ability and poorly developed basketball IQ. He saw little to no movement on offense, inconsistent rotation energy on defense unless he was mad. He thought out with 8 minutes to go against a team he had 5 inches on their biggest guy. Well, I think we know who it is. Refused to body someone up on the block and do dirty work in favor of a whole game in favor of a whole lot of give me the ball and let me take you one-on-one. I would argue, this is the part I guess I want to ask you guys as a question. I would argue that modern AAU programs have dumbed down 80 to 90% of incoming recruits. This is not so much a question as looking for your thoughts on the state of most incoming recruits. So I think the whole thing is fascinating, but the end part I think too was really cool. Like when I played high school basketball, and I wasn't a recruit or anywhere near it, but it felt like your high school team mattered more than your AAU team, and that was how you were coached. Now it's, to me, has flipped. I'll ask Fan, and then I want to ask just Kurtz and DY their general thoughts on it. How much is AAU dumbed down? What a kid knows coming in to basketball?
I'll just say this. I mean, I've been around the high school game quite a bit the last several years, so I see it. And here's the deal: kids spend more time playing games than they do working on skills.
Definitely.
And that's not all bad. I mean, there's certain talents they develop playing games that they don't develop just doing drills and shooting the ball and things that we traditionally think are good basketball habits. And so there is some basketball IQ that is lost. There's no doubt about it. But there's also some benefits to the game that kids have more access and get to play more than they ever have before.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy when you get older to look back and say it was better when I was younger because we did it this way. And I'm not sure that's always I'm not sure that's always the case. I do think it has flipped, and some of it I think is engagement. And I think the problem becomes with high school kids sometimes that are really, really talented, that if they're not being watched and they know they're not being recruited that day, they may not be as engaged as they might be if they're at an AAU event with 20 college coaches in the crowd. And that makes the high school game worse at times, but it doesn't mean that guy's a bad player. And so we've got to be careful, I completely understand. I've seen it with several guys that have been high-profile guys in the state of Kansas the last several years. So I understand what you're saying. But it doesn't always mean that they're going to be a bad player, and it doesn't always mean that they're not going to play hard once they get here. Because I think so many times high school kids don't understand how hard high-level college teams play, especially if they're well coached. And they either figure it out in college or they go somewhere else and transfer, which is what we see happen all the time. So there's a lot going on there, but I do think that because kids play games so much is what I would say, and they don't do work on skill as much as what you're seeing a lot with what your observation on your post, which is a very good post.
And not to dumb it down or to make it even more simple, but more or less he's saying they're not necessarily, other than the less skill work, they're not necessarily worse players or poorly developed. But the fact that you're going to watch high school games, which used to be their chance to shine, which now probably seems like a chore to them.
It is.
To play high school basketball games. So that's kind of sad.
It is. It's true, though. It is really true.
I think it is true. Let's move on to something that's maybe less sad. These both seem up DY's alley, these next couple of questions here. And then it looks like a good Kurtz one. All right, this is from Jeff R7885. He asks, I continue to be surprised by the number of KC Metro football players being often successfully recruited by the likes of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Northwestern, etc. Graham Mertz at Wisconsin this year. Is this something that's always been happening, or do you think it's a trend that's happened more in the last 5-10 years, Derek? And you've covered this region now for a good amount of time. Have you always seen those Big Ten schools hitting up the KC Metro like they are right now?
Yeah, I mean, two of Wisconsin's better players this past year were A.J. Taylor from Rockhurst High School and Isaiah Loudermilk, 8-man football player in Kansas, West Elk High School. So Wisconsin
was all over that.
He was. He was waiting for me to call that name out.
So. Say the wrong high school.
So Wisconsin's definitely been here. Minnesota had Cooper Beebe's older brother, Colton, was a senior this past year, or a junior this past year. He'll be a grad transfer now, but or possibly grad transfer. But so I think that you see, you're hearing about it more, but I think it's always kind of happened. I think Northwestern had a really good senior defensive lineman this year. Fred Wyatt was from Lawrence Free State. So I think that it's actually a place that has been recruited quite a bit the past 5 to 10 years. And now we're starting to focus on recruiting a little bit. So it seems like, well, what are these schools doing here? They've been here and they've noticed that there's been a lot of talent in this area.
I missed a question I wanted to ask you, Derek, earlier. I was scanning through. And I want to say this now because I just realized I forgot a question. If I missed your question when I'm reading this, it's probably not personal. Maybe I'm just a big jerk, but it probably is a mistake. But I remember reading a question that I thought, oh, I'm going to ask Derek that, and then I didn't. So let me scroll back to it real quick. Oh, B-Shown87. I want to ask Derek Young this. What is harder to cover? A coach who doesn't emphasize recruiting or a coach that does emphasize recruiting? What's harder to cover?
Probably one that does.
Yeah. But it's also probably more fun for you, would you say?
It's definitely more entertaining, more fun, more to follow. But
it is more work, no doubt.
It's more work. And it's not that it's hard work, but you're liable to miss something a lot easier. It was not too hard to miss something with, I guess we'll call it, with Bill Snyder's recruiting. It was hard to stay engaged because they would literally go kind of silent for months on end, especially during the football season. So it was hard to stay engaged, but in this one's less hard to stay engaged, but easier to miss something.
We're getting close here. I'm going to ask this next one again to DY, then I'm going to go with Kurtz after that. Back-to-back questions from Scott Wildcat. DY, what is one territory in football recruiting K-State doesn't really get involved in right now, but you consider a good territory to maybe try to get into, and it could be worth their time? So just a region, place, city, however you want to define it, where you don't think K-State does a lot of work right now, but maybe they could be successful in.
Well, they're about to do two areas that probably we need to begin to discuss, and I think that's St. Louis and Chicago. And I think that's what I was gonna say. I think that's two metropolitan areas that were still picked from a little bit, but weren't emphasized or traditional recruiting grounds under Bill Snyder, and I think they will be under Coach Kleiman. I don't have as much confidence that they'll be able to be big players in Chicago, but I think they certainly can in St. Louis. That's an area that's, in terms of high school football talent, both in quality and quantity, has probably increased the most of anything within like an 8-hour radius in the last 5 years.
Remember Lamarck Brown?
I do.
St. Louis.
I do. Number 7, number 1 in your hearts.
Yeah.
Right?
Just as an example, I think it was...
if it's Lamarck Brown, he's already said it.
I think it was the 2018 class. It could have been the 2017 class. There was 3 really good defensive linemen alone in St. Louis. Trevor Trout signed with USC. Michael Thompson and Ronnie Perkins both signed with Oklahoma. That doesn't even mention Idel Adeoye was a linebacker that signed with Texas. So that's 4 blue blood, recruits out of one city, front 7. So I think that's an area that deserves emphasis and a little attention.
John Kurtz, I consider you to be, I don't know, the leader of the media mogul around this area. The most talented, the most attractive, all those kind of things.
Well, please continue.
I could go on.
Sir.
So I think you're the guy to answer this question from Scott Wildcat. Do you believe there should be a KSO/Bosco Boys spinoff podcast titled In Between Two Grants that features Grant KSU and Grant Flanders and a rotating mic where they bring in other K-State media, such as yourself, perhaps, maybe fan, maybe it could be anybody, personalities, and interview a subject. So again, the between two Grants, Flanders and Grant KSU,
Definitely.
just interviewing people. What do you think?
There is nothing I would like to see more than Grant Squared interviewing Bruce Weber.
Oh my gosh!
Like between two Grants with Bruce Weber,
because
needs
Bruce would try to answer
happen.
everything too. Like he would be good about it.
Yeah, and like I'm talking. I don't want any basketball questions.
No.
Like I just want life questions. I want to know more about Bruce Weber's life because it's kind of fascinating. Like he was like hit by
got
a
a
car
haircut today, right?
And have you've heard that story? Like he got hit by a car or something when he was a
I
kid
think I've heard
and
parts of it.
survived. And like,
Yeah.
dude, there's some wild stuff. Like
His
I'm
grandma,
telling you,
his grandma gave him what? Like, what beer was it that his grandma gave him?
Oh, you're
when he was a
right.
kid?
Oh,
I did read
yeah.
about that.
That was
Yeah.
pretty good.
I can't remember what it was, but he talked about it in reference to like.
no, that's the thing. Like he just doesn't ever really want to talk about himself, like in that. But man, if you could get him going, like Flando and Grant KSU, I feel like, just Bosco boys, I feel like you guys drink a lot, right? Like, just, liquor them up a little bit.
Feel like. Feel like.
I mean,
They do.
Okay,
They
okay.
do. That's fine.
Look, I'm not judging
here's
at
another-
all. I'm saying that's to your advantage here. That is to your advantage.
But to
Like,
go
They have
along
beer
with
the pot.
to go along with that, K-State is the first land grant university.
Oh my God.
I think Matt Hall explained it best one time when describing Bruce Weber. When you have a formal interview, a media availability with Bruce Weber, how he's different from every other coach that any of us have ever covered. He'll answer your question, and then 30 other questions you didn't even ask.
Yeah, he's gonna answer your stuff, dude. Between two grants, I mean,
I think that's a fabulous idea.
I've been thinking
awesome.
I literally today that we need more Flanders on camera, being himself too. Like I don't
No,
want
yeah,
I don't
we
want him
need-
trying to be like, hey Bruce, what do you think about running, of more flex cuts against? No, don't ask that. I want you to say, Bruce, what's the deal with your hair? You never change it. Like something like that would be good.
No, the other thing, we gotta get Flando to come on K-Man sometime and play the KSO game.
The KSO game show.
Yeah.
KSO game
that,
show.
so.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, guys, moving on to Scott Wildcat. Another question all about logos. We love this. I need you guys to commit to one. Don't say, oh, I like this one, like that one. And then me and Flanders can unbreak the tie if there is one. What logo should K-State basketball bring back in a bigger way? He has 3 options. The Bobcat head logo, which is currently seen on like the dark purple lavender throwback uniforms.
And my winning streak shirt.
And his winning streak shirt, correct.
5
The
games.
basketball Power Cat logo, currently seen on, I have a story about this on Mason's Twitter
Mason's, yeah.
avatar. I have a story for that real quick after we're done. I'll do it on the show. And then the basketball Cats logo, very famous by KSU_fan, the Cats logo. So you can pick one of those 3 to bring back in a big way. KSU fan, the Cats logo, the basketball Power Cat logo with like fish-looking basketball scales on it, or the Bobcat head logo. Pick one, Kurtz.
I will fight anybody that says it's not the Cats script over the basketball.
Yeah. DY.
I gotta look at the one that Mason has. Nope, don't like it.
It's not good. It's not
I'm
good.
It was on the
gonna-
court at one time.
It was. You're right. Back when they had like
Asbury,
teal
yeah.
lettering on the baselines. Teal.
Yikes, that's rough. No, I'm going with the one on Fan's shirt. I like the. I don't like
You have the
scri-
Bobcat head logo.
Yeah, I don't like the script one. I guess we're fighting.
I didn't want to have
No.
to fight you, do I? I mean, I've never fought any human being in my life, so
Well, you know I have. So.
Let me ask before we get your answer from Fan. The Bobcat head logo, I should know this because I've seen your shirt and I've seen the shorts. Is that the one they used? Because I'm thinking of the one like in the late 80s. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Because there's that one and then there's the other one that's more front-facing, you know what I'm saying? Like the Bobcat head's kind of sideways. There's one that's like staring right at you.
Yes.
But anyway, is it Cats? I mean, that's what you're known for.
The Cats, yeah, sometimes I kind of feel like the Cats logo is my own logo.
right.
Like,
yeah.
but I love that
that's
logo.
What I look at it as, to be honest. Yeah.
I love that logo from, late Kruger, early Altman. That was kind of the thing when I became a K-State basketball fan. So I always go back to that one. I do like the old school Wildcat logo as well. I bought that shirt for a reason because it's pretty awesome. But I would probably go with the Cats logo.
I like the Cats logo. I really like that Bobcat. Quick Mason story. We're leaving Bramlage the night of the Texas Tech win, and we're walking in the tunnel, and they have a bunch of like really old folding chairs that have that logo on it. The old scaled basketball logo.
Did you steal one?
Well, honestly, we're going to. Like, and I don't care about telling the story because we were open about it. Like, I told him, like, dude, just put one on your shoulder and walk by Tom and see what he says. Tom Gilbert, basketball SID. And Mason, who's a courageous guy, did not do it. We just walked by, but we asked him, like, hey, man, how much would one of those set you back? And he gave a funny, non-answer, but, like, he joked with us, acknowledged it. And I said, see, Mason, if you just put it on your shoulder and walked off, he probably doesn't even stop you. And then we wrote Tom on Twitter asking how much it would cost, and he didn't answer there either. I think he wants us not to take one. They are
Probably
nice.
so.
They are nice. And that's what he took a picture with his phone and made that. That's his logo. It's actually on the chair because he took that picture.
Nice.
So that's a little bit of fact for you there. Okay. I've got, Limestone Land Grant. Land Grant. What are did you that how you thought about this? Because you saw Land Grant coming up?
No, I did not.
What are the chances? Okay.
I did not.
He's got 3 Buffalo Sweats left, guys. They don't last forever. During which games should he crack them open while watching the Cats on TV? He's only got 3 Buffalo Sweats left in the world. What games should he crack them open? Never. Flanders says never. Keep them. I'm going to say use them all. Use all 3 in the first 6 minutes of the KU game in Bramlage. That's what my goal would be.
I would agree with that.
Fan says the same. Anything else different? For
I would
you guys?
I would say 2 for the KU game and 1 for the first round tournament game.
Okay.
How about all 3 for the national championship game?
He loves the Cats right now. He likes them like I like them.
I think
Gonna go all in.
Yeah, I mean, like I assume he's not going to be in attendance for any of the games, right? So
Doesn't say.
honestly, that'd be cooler if you like smuggled it
Right.
in. Like that'd be awesome. I think you go Kansas, and then wait for either a Big 12 championship game or a regional final, something like that. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
eBay.
Flanders says eBay. Flanders, when you
That's a
take
good call,
you take
Flanders.
You take
Yeah.
a mic away from Flanders and he says funny stuff, and all of a sudden, like immediately,
He also
put
plays
it back in front of his face.
He
and
also
he's-
plays. He also doesn't really care about these Buffalo things. Don't think they're that important.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You got to put more.
For
Anyway,
first, you said nothing, and then you're eBay.
he meant always to save him. Guys, Limestone Land Grant has another one. Last year, he thinks it was last year. We had a Star Wars Day. I remember Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
I want to say it was the West Virginia game. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then it says with some weird promos, graphics and merch that clearly had been manufacturers that any school could plop onto their logo. Thank you, Disney, he says. Us and Levitard to be in trouble this week for blasting Disney, I guess. What movie or TV show theme night, however, would you like to see? His votes, you can't pick one of his votes. Top Gun night, The Office night, or Tron night. So as long as it doesn't look like a knockoff.
The hell is Tron?
It's like an old 80s sci-fi like motorcycle thing.
Yeah.
I think is that close?
There was a
Holy
remake a couple years ago.
I don't know. Yeah.
I just imagine someone listening to the podcast. You
Yeah.
only hear, the hell is Trump?
So you got to make an answer. You can't say one of those. I'm going first. Like it's easy for me. It would be pro wrestling night. Like you get that crowd all.
I mean, I'm in on that.
Come on,
that sounds
man.
great.
Come on,
Yeah.
that's not gonna be great. And then when you do entrances, instead of just to bring on the Cats, play like Steve Austin's music and have the glass shatter. They come
dude,
out.
the team could come
you know,
out to the
and like Austin, or whoever you want it to be. You know, I mean Hulk Hogan. Who's cool? You know, The Rock.
Bruce Weber comes out to the Undertaker.
Bruce Weber comes out to the. I mean, like that's what I would do. And then the fans can dress up. But that's mine. Mine is pro wrestling night. Any different ones? Brian, would you like to see?
I would go
theme
with
nights?
Rambo night.
Ooh,
A purple, you know,
Oh, I know what you're
tie in
talking
your
about.
hair. I mean,
that's
Rambo
pretty good.
night would be pretty good.
It'd be
That's
intense
solid,
too,
yeah.
man. That'd be intense. Anything else other than Rambo and WWF, WWE? Any other ideas?
I think wrestling night's a winner.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
If anybody at K-State's 2 hours into this listening and you haven't thought of a wrestling night yet, just do it. Like, you think I won't hit somebody with a chair for entertainment? Just do it. Guys, last question. Purple to the Bone. He's one of my neighbors. He's a very nice man. This is our last question. So before we ask it and wrap up this marathon of a show, but I'm glad you guys took the time to do it and answer all these questions. Again, I appreciate the posters for asking all the questions. Appreciate our sponsor here at Tallgrass Tap House, as well as Harry's and Bourbon and Baker. Pretty couple of simple questions, but I like them. Simple is a good way to answer it. What are you each looking forward to next year in K-State football and basketball? Simple question. And I'll answer it too because it's the last one. Just tell me something you're looking forward to next year. He says next year, so I'm going to assume next season in K-State basketball and football. Let's start with Kurtz.
Kicking ass.
You give Kurtz half a beer over the course of 2 hours, and he starts cussing.
I'm honestly, this is probably like prisoner of the moment a little bit, but I know that to an extent it's going to be a little bit of a struggle on the field football-wise. You know, it's not going to be what we're all so excited about right now. So what I would say is actually what I'm excited for is to see how this 2020 recruiting class plays out, because I'm so excited about that right now. And Seems like they have Turner Corcoran kind of on the hook right
Basically
now.
locked up. Check it up.
I mean,
write it down in ink.
Look, DY said a lean earlier today, so that has me real excited.
DY said silent commit. I heard him say it.
Yeah. That to me is it because
he's never said that to anybody who thinks I'm.
And this might be this is one of those things that's because we haven't had it. Like I've seen winning football, I've seen winning basketball, but I haven't really seen and experienced as a fan. I've even seen like great basketball recruiting classes back in the Bob Huggins. Well, right at Hoopscoop.com.
I meant Hoopscoop with Cartier Martin, Des Willingham.
But what I really haven't seen
that class, I think.
What I really haven't seen is football recruiting be so good and exciting and landing a number of fairly big time, at least regional or local football recruits. And because it's so new and because it's so different, I mean, that's what made the first run of success with Huggins and Frank in basketball so damn exciting and awesome, even though a lot of the same stuff has happened now, but it was new and it was fresh. And that's, to be honest with you right now, what I am looking forward to the most is how that 2020 football recruiting class plays out.
That's exactly the kind of answer we want for this, or I assume that Purple to the Bone wants for this, because it's all about positivity as we wrap this up. Same question. You pick either sport. He went with football. You go with either. Both. You go bring them on. Something you're excited for next year in football and basketball. Derek Young.
I got to keep up the shtick, so I'm pretty excited about the Final Four. Right?
Me and you both, buddy.
Very good.
Me and you both.
So I'm pretty excited. So maybe
it's nice to feel like it's already locked up.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of pressure usually going into it. Like they're gonna make it, but now like you pretty much know.
Yeah.
They're gonna be in the Final Four.
I just gotta look up what city didn't make the flight.
Yeah.
already.
I should go pull. I got it pulled up just a second here.
Minneapolis.
We could drive there.
Yeah. There we go. We don't even have to fly.
Yeah.
And for football, would be the same answer as Kurt's. Actually, I'll get serious on this one. More specifically, I know he kind of hinted at it, what happens with the 6 in-state kids that they have offered, and which they might offer, 1, 2, 3 more, who knows? But just how they fare with that in-state crop, because it's going to be higher quality, a higher quantity of in-state talent than what is typical in the state of Kansas, and the difference in terms of recruiting, I think, if you want to have a substantial improvement, has to come locally first.
Very good. I'm going to go, and then I'll let Fan go, and then we have one more from him. Looking forward to. I'll say this one. Next year, I'm looking forward to what I believe to be the inevitability of the K-State fan base thinking K-State's going to go roughly 6-20 in basketball because Barry and Dean and Cam are gone. When I think they will probably still be like you hinted at, a borderline bubble team to a worst case probably an NIT team, best case probably a 10 seed, 9 seed in the tournament. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, how are they back in it? And I'll say because they have 3 guys back who basically started 2 years, which is very rare in college basketball to have that much experience back. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to, is the inevitable overachievement of next year's team when it's probably just appropriate to what it was. And in football, they will have a game where they either beat Mississippi State or Texas or not Oklahoma necessarily, but they're going to win a game like that next year, I think, and it will be the fun overreaction. You know what I mean? To oh my gosh, we're already there. And then we'll learn that's not the case, and the roster will take time to rebuild. But those will be fun moments. When the basketball team is to overachieve, and when the football team wins a game against somebody. It might be, like I said, early at Mississippi State. That gives everyone the sense that this rebuild is so far along. Those are 2 I'm excited for.
Yeah, I would say for each, I agree with you on basketball. I think we're going to be better than most people think. And I guess I've reached the point where I really enjoy Bruce proving people wrong that think he sucks.
Fun. Yeah.
Because he's done it so many times at this point that they just move the bar of what he's doing wrong, and then he does it again, and then they move the bar again. And so, I mean, certainly he's not a perfect coach, but he's been a good coach for us, and he's done some good things, and I think he's going to continue to do good things. And I think next year is going to be, like you said, an NIT bubble type team, and people we'll still hear people wonder,
asking for his job.
Yeah, and people wonder, should I hop on board, all that kind of stuff that we still hear. and it's gone kind of away with this 5-game winning streak. So that's number one for basketball. For football, I'm a scheme guy. I don't know how good we'll be, but I did all that breakdown of what they ran at North Dakota State, and I want to see how that translates to the Big 12. A-gap power, counter tray, play-action passing game, and what they did to how much is two back, how much is one back, how much is spread. I want to see all that stuff and how this offense translates to what we have in place and what it looks like in the Big 12 next year. And I'm charting it and breaking it down and making gifts and all that stuff is stuff that I'm weird, but I like to do that. And I want to do it for someone that's not Bill Snyder and Dana Dimmel, and something new is something that's going to be fun for me as a fan.
I had the similar thought, and we'll get through this pretty quick because we've been on for a while. But to what you just said, and I'm curious what you guys think about it, the idea that, and we couldn't call every play. We thought we could, right? But if you really went back and charted our guesses, we're probably wrong some. But we could guess pretty close. You know what I mean? When you're watching a K-State football game, when you see a certain personnel grouping come out or you see a certain down and distance, like you know what they're going to run. It's going to be so weird to not know that next year. I mean, can you imagine the first time? Because we're still going to have that same habit. They're going to come out in 3rd and 1, and someone's going to say, Wildcat, you know? Like, they don't run the Wildcat anymore or whatever it is. Like, that's going to be weird to watch.
I mean, Charles Jones isn't going to run out there next year?
Maybe he should. Like, I mean, but that's going to be the weirdest thing for me next year is when we start watching a game and realize, oh, my gosh, I don't know what they're going to run here, you know?
I mean, sat by him for every football game this past year.
Nelson can't call
we joke about it, but Chris Nelson will literally call at least 70% of Kansas State's plays on every Saturday. But to be fair, he'll also call about 50% of the other teams.
That's true. And it's not generic either. He's not saying, oh, this is a run here, or oh, this. No, he's telling you they're going to run zone read down here to the left side, and the right guard's going to pull. I mean, like, he will tell you exactly what they're going to do. And you're like, oh, good job. Way to go, Nelson. Thanks for ruining the game, man. I was going to watch it.
So he's like Tony Romo.
He's like Tony Romo.
He really is.
Yeah. How about DY having a guy on Twitter fighting with him on Tony Romo?
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
Who the hell doesn't like Tony Romo?
My only
Yes.
criticism of Tony Romo, and I put it on Twitter, and I don't do a lot of this stuff because I think he's great. 1 and 2, like in my opinion, it's not that exciting. He did say in the first half that made me really mad. Like, it was when the Patriots, I'm sorry to bring this game up, when the Patriots had run, 2 or 3 straight draws on 3rd and long, Romo says, almost word for word, he's like, well, if you're the Patriots, you cannot run the draw again. I know it's worked, 3 times, so you can't run it again. So if I'm the Chiefs, I'm pinning my ears back and just rushing the passer. And I said, that's exactly why you'd run the draw, because you just said if you're the defense, you're going to rush the passer and ignore the draw.
True.
That's why you'd run the draw. Other than that, he was perfect in the game. They did not run the draw on that play, so he was also correct. So, last question, Purple to the Bone, says many people are always looking for our next coach when the current ones fail. How do you feel about our current coaches? And if possible, give me a name you would trade for them that you think is realistic. So the question is just, 1, how do you feel about K-State's coaches? And then 2, if we didn't have Bruce Weber, we didn't have Chris Kleinman, who's somebody that you realistically believe could replace them? Let's start with Derek, then we'll go Kurtz, me, and we'll wrap up the show with Fan. So Derek, Kurtz, me, Fan. What do you think of their coaches? Possible trade.
Feel good about Kleiman. He's undefeated.
Never lost.
Never lost a game.
Didn't lose last year either. So.
No, I mean, I'm excited to see. A lot of the offense stuff kind of intrigues me, kind of what Fan was talking about, and seeing how much of that they bring and in what variation, because it's not going to be 100% identical, I don't think. So that part intrigues me, but I'm not going to look for his replacement. He hasn't coached a game yet. Basketball-wise, I don't really know. Basketball, it's really tough because Bruce Weber's having a great amount of success. Made Elite Eight last year. Could do the same this year. Who knows? I'm picking him, go to the Final Four this entire podcast. And so but his age is starting to come into a thing. He's in his 60s, I believe. So
62, maybe. I would say.
Yeah, it looked like 62. Yeah,
looks pretty good.
Even if he. With all the success, retirement's not far along, so they have to start considering that. I'm sure Gene Taylor, in the back of his mind is, but I'm not really a basketball savant enough to know what is really available out there that is like jumps out at you at Kansas State. I like Nate Oates at Buffalo,
sure,
but I don't know how much that is feasible.
And I think, to me at least, some of what's what I'm looking for. The spirit of the question isn't even like predict the next coach.
Yeah.
It's more like.
Like?
Give me a couple guys that you think realistically you know,
You would want to pursue.
sure,
Nate
or,
Oates?
or that you would trade for.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, yeah.
I really, I mean, Nate Oates at Buffalo, I think is a hot name, and I'm all about him. So
Yeah. Kurtz, what do you think of the coaches?
Yeah,
And
so
the Kleiman one, it's pretty fast, but
Yeah,
I mean, he's new. But just give me a couple coaches you like and think would work well at K-State if Bruce Weber retired tomorrow.
I like your idea of more. I see. I'm approaching it more like guys that I would swap with that are in similar situations because,
Right.
like, I don't know, man. None of the options out there really excite me all that much. What you want, Brad Underwood right now? You want Steve Henson right now?
Brian Henson.
I mean, even
What
like,
other
look,
Hensons are there?
man,
Bob Huggins.
like I love Frank Martin. Bob Huggins seems like he may be hitting this point of critical mass now in his career.
You
But
want to
like,
get him.
you know, so like,
John Henson.
what are the options here that you really want and are excited by on the basketball front? And football-wise, like the only thing I could think of is if you were like a big Neil Brown guy, because I
Sure.
do believe that to have been a legitimate option that he would have taken the job. You know, maybe you go that sort of route. Brent Venables, I don't know if you're considering realistic or not, but I mean, I don't know. Again, prisoner of the moment. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm bought in on it. I'm not sure that I would really trade it for any seemingly realistic option at this point. I really like what Kleiman's doing. Basketball, the one name that stood out, like I'll tell you this, and one name that I think a lot of people would say that I just want to axe right now is like Fred Hoiberg. I see Fred Hoiberg all the time. Like, look, man, Fred Hoiberg might be an NBA head coach again somewhere. He could have his pick of a lot of college jobs. He ain't coming to K-State.
Yeah. Let me re-ask the question. I think we're all missing the point of it.
Scott Drew. That's what I was
There
going
you
to
go.
say.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
want I want Scott Drew. I like Scott Drew. He's in a similar place. He took over a pretty decrepit program there, and it's well documented that I think he's a hell of a coach, and I really like him. Scott Drew would be.
See, that's perfect.
I don't like Scott Drew.
Well, that's the point though. The question's not is who should be K-State's next
He
coach.
just took a program that couldn't play in a conference schedule and took
what's
them to
wrong
two
with
regional
Scott-
finals.
I would get on Scott Drew because Baylor is a terrible program, and we just saw the stats: second best winning percentage the last 10 years in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you can't be bad, and well, that's a different conversation. But you're getting into this is the point of the question to me. So I'll do it different. Let me throw a couple of names. Would you trade Bruce Weber right now at K-State for Steve Prohm? Yes or no? John Kurtz.
No.
DY.
No.
So those 3 no's. Okay. Would you trade him for Rick Barnes? Kurtz.
Yes.
Yeah,
Probably so.
Okay, so we're good.
number one.
How about Lon Kruger? We trade for Lon Kruger right now, Kurtz.
Yes.
No.
I like Lon, but I don't know if he's. I think they're about equivalent at this
That's a
point. in
tough
their
one for
careers.
me. See, I think I'd say no, actually, but I like Lon Kruger. But I think that's the point of the question. So, like,
Yeah, I mean, to go
Fire
with
some
what
more.
you're saying, I would say Chris
Yeah.
Beard.
right. Chris
I mean,
Beard, I would too.
I think
probably.
he's got
Oh yeah, Chris Beard.
the upward trajectory to be a pretty darn good coach in the future. So, I mean, he would be my basketball choice. If you're going out of the way, I mean, I like Oates at Buffalo. I also like Forbes. I mean, I think he's got more to prove, but I
Yeah.
like him, and he's got some Kansas connections. Football-wise, it'd be the young guys that we were in on. Latrell, Norvell, Brown. I mean, any of those 3.
That's why it's tough to answer for that because
I mean,
we
it's
just
tough.
did it all.
It's
you know?
tough.
I mean,
we were
yeah.
in that situation.
We were
so
sitting right here talking about
That's
it.
who I would.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would pick one of those guys. I mean, I would honestly. That's who I'd go with.
Yeah, football wise, I'd probably still pick Latrell if I had to trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? We had that talk when going to Frisco, didn't we, in the car?
I'm climbing in, man.
Yeah, I think me and you were both all climbing into the top.
Yeah, now. But I guess if I had to, take another.
The question this person, I think, is he's trying to say, do you think K-State has good coaches?
Yes.
Yes.
Is
I
the
do.
question,
Yes, I
right?
think K-State has
so he's
pretty
not
good
saying you
coaches.
have to trade. He's saying who's some guys
No.
you would trade for if you could.
No, it's a good question.
Right,
It
and
is
so
a
you
good
wouldn't
question.
trade for Latrell, you're saying?
No, not at this
I
point.
don't think I would either.
I wouldn't.
I
Yeah.
mean, so yeah, I think but that's the point. And I think the point that it's a good thing to wrap it up on is I think people forget K-State's got, we don't know what Chris Kleiman's going to be, right? I hadn't coached one game at K-State, so it's not really fair to judge. But K-State's got pretty successful coaches. You look at what Bill Snyder's done for the last Bruce Weber, what he's done the last 7 years over his career. I think we get so fast into who could replace them, who's going to be next, what are we going to do when we fire this guy? The point of the question is if you really go through it, of course there's guys you're going to trade them for. K-State's not Alabama in football, and they're not Duke in basketball, so you're going to find guys you're going to trade them for. But I think it's interesting we sit around and we throw out some names that we would say are good coaches, right? Lon Kruger, Steve Prohm. I know Steve Prohm's a different one, but and we're not all saying right off the way, yeah, I would trade Bruce for him. What about Jamie Dixon? That's a good one, right?
A good Jamie.
I mean,
I'd probably go Dixon.
he's done a good job at TCU. That's hard to argue.
Yeah.
I pointed out
Florida was bad. TCU was bad.
They have not been to back-to-back tournaments since the 50s.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they're probably in the verge of doing that this year.
Yeah.
And they were
insane.
terrible.
The 50s.
They were terrible when they joined the league. They were awful at
Yeah.
basketball.
I remember them being, whatever they were, 0-12 the year they beat K. I mean, they were. And who was it was the old Stanford coach? I forgot his name.
Trent Johnson.
Yeah, Trent
Yeah.
Johnson. I mean, so a guy who wasn't completely incapable,
Yeah.
and they were bad.
I mean, that was probably one of the biggest upsets in college basketball history is when they beat KU. That was unbelievable. Even looking back at it now.
Wasn't that the year K-State tied?
It might have been.
I think it was because I remember thinking, man, if KU doesn't lose that game to TCU, or if K-State doesn't lose to Marcus Smart in Oklahoma State, this KU streak's been dead for years, if not for that. Let's wrap this up. It's been a long episode of the KSO Show. I really great for Fan to come out here. I know that Kurtz was at a game and working before this and came out here. Derek got here early today from Kansas City because he's just a good guy. Flano's been real ill. But it's going to be fine because we're going to College Station tomorrow. Thanks again for your questions. Thanks for the time that you spent with this show tonight. I guess there's nothing at all else to do on this show.
Tell your friends.
Do it.